The U.S. justified tanks and political post-drugs, chemical rappers that includes physique, leaders not easy to replace lives, the lower leaders are not experienced who approach drones, eliminate rappers who both sexual drones, undercut tiers ability to communicate, translate into leaders cannot get orders from communicate on drones, turn command structure, join liability, the ultras are realistic, and war zones are disabled country, breasting not from the stage of drone, violate, drone sovereignty less than boots on the ground, large scale occupy drones, create smaller bus zones, and decrease casualty drones, king loiter above a target, reducing ounces, civilian decline, commonly kills unused drones, far less money than the allies to hunt down, terrorists, the Pakistan, Yemen, militaries, torture, detainees, and extremely balanced civilians, otherwise a nuclear terror attack is inevitable. TOE 14A, joint U.S.-Russia threat assessment concludes the dangerous military action is needed to endorse by preferential effects. The government studies repeatedly concludes a terrorist group could make a nuclear bomb. The EQ is actively signed nuclear bombs, repeated attempts to purchase material or recruit expertise or whatever directly, but reiterates nuclear Fatah Al Qaeda. AQ provided resilient intended enduring capabilities might increase nuclear terrorism will be with us for decades. No room for complacent terrorism. May claim bombs are hidden in the city pan flight. Economic chaos huge. The pressure on leaders to retaliate nuclear terrorism anywhere will be a global catastrophe. Such out a world trade shatter would stagger the world economy. Extinction, helmet, nuclear terrorism would be a catastrophe. Momentum force and the likelihood of attack is significant. 85 national security experts found an attack involving nuclear explosion occurring in the next 10 years. Terrorism is the neck as the first nuclear war. Civilization will be destroyed. Nuclear explosions could usher in a nuclear winter. America's hoping so beats 40 years later. Nuclear chains could have 17 climatic consequences. Preventing World War III is necessity. Cause use Russia miscalculation, extinction, buried at all. 13 a war involving use of Russian nuclear arsenal globally catastrophic, quickly and collapse in modern civilization. Extinction, the accidental launch of safeguards. Fatal nuclear weapons explodes without direction from leaders in command and control capabilities launch a counterattack before suffering damage and for nuclear war has continued to present its danger where US and Russia remain ready to launch terrorist groups like hostile resemble nuclear attack by the other nations, especially about their events current nuclear crisis. Al-Qaeda aside, nuclear weapons advantage to its norms. Unrestrained drone use outside of activities collapses illegal drones governing targeting killing other planes off Brooks. 13 drones pose a significant challenge to existing legal firm drones, make it easier for the U.S. to expand the battlefield drones are used or outside of hot battlefields to use to challenge the existing legal firm's use policy as on the virtue of videos and rule outside hot battlefields of difference where the war against Al-Qaeda's open administration assertions are non-falsifiable. We are no longer clear basis for deciding how to categorize use TK. Other state will fall under because the able to rest out like they do pretty. We should use this when you advance a robust legal framework. Unfortunately, we are ending every repressive state player on how to foment into the lead position to destabilize the shaky collections here. Your chief of the U.S. executive branch is so armored that solves global war. U.S. President is key. Roberts, 13 proliferation of tech has moved beyond the control of the U.S. 75 countries have aircraft, 50 nations, a billion thousand type technology. Snowflake, the main president for applications by the U.S. Obama has his use executive power to ignore requests by congressional overseas resistance monitoring by courts. The use of drones outside traditional battlefields is given a green light to a plate aircraft control operation that could destabilize the entire region. Iran, interior Turkey, Russia, and Ukraine. Turkey to kill Kurdish militants around Moscow and point to the Washington would goes to discuss Washington fails to establish clear rules of itself that would play a role globally relevant center for delineating between legitimate and rogue use and what happens if China strikes in the SES or India using aircraft to strike Kashmir. This case using lethal words out the border can lead to wider escalation. The will lower the threshold for lethal force outside the border. Administration's plans on the EM beyond Afghanistan or Pakistan is dodgy. The window of opportunity for the U.S. to create precedent quickly closely aligning a policy with U.S. practice along with you establishing the kind of America might find helpful in arguing against another direction. No is established by tech leading countries even when not written agreements that shows against containing weapons including mines, laser, nuclear bombs. The how states use military capability influence how other states have been used by other states. The plans normally key to solve Chinese miscalculation. Preps and Seiko 14. The U.S. has a relative monopoly and other states are quickly catching up with new weapons are highly disabling. Countries won't have nuclear returns have lowered the threshold for us to the U.S. example. Fortunately, the U.S. has the ability to shape how the use of drones will spread and whether scenarios become bad countries follow Washington's lead. The longer the U.S. delays, the less influence will have without U.S. leadership. Extremely difficult to read a credible race for which the laws apply the policies remove the reduce the prospect of violent confrontation. China get their military to be Jones could push a leader escalate. Few states could threaten international stability. Drones heighten the potential miscalculation and military escalation. National sentiments untapped will have made our confident over wars likely their prospect will increase with the countries delay drones. This solves miscalculation and war in the Southeast China Seas, Brimley 13 amidst of tension. Beijing commemorated Tokyo's purchase sent UAVs toward the other Chinese joint venture aggravated this more Japan. Due to the Japanese official response to Japan had personal red line for Beijing. The introduction of drones would bring additional instability escalation of fiercely contested South and East China Seas. The widespread concern conflict could result in minor incidents with biostatic controlments. It could be that trigger on UAVs and credit was taking come by and now with an experienced operator you have a perfect recipe for miscalculation during crisis. China can have instead of using China would have used to use the promise U.S. plans and the potential to be equally escalatory. The dynamic will get worse as the technologies appear particularly because of lack of well-established order for the use of conflict will control China's UAVs and encourage increasing the sort of provocative these risk will increase the absence of political leadership. Technology could very well lead the region into war. It escalates their defense is wrong. Oslan 13, the U.S. ECS made the world's first war started by drones. China and Japan are moving towards a military clash. The result of war put in the conflict anytime Japan would shoot down drone. Beijing said that would afterward U.S. and Russia, India, and China and the others are watching disputes make it more difficult developing a meaningful regional political mechanism. America's alliance with Japan puts U.S. troops on the line. SES conflict caused extinction. Whitner 11 gathering tension between U.S. and China is clear. U.S. recently found China from the East South China Sea Boat nations would be radioactive with 37 off with blood at the center. Nuclear winter around the globe. And Kaku conflict caused extinction. Baker 12 China is nationalistic. Japan would have allies around China were to attack war would develop a nuclear war. The island dispute would escalate to extinction. The nuclear fallout would affect Asia and the West. The best scholarship validates are the year of our races. Farley 11. A drone race is a result of the use of drones at the CT by the USA. Normal drone uses developing around how to use the sites to deploy drones. The China Russian media will deploy drones against a similar enemy's army, which is happening because of tech their embedded political damage. China and Russia pursue drones before the US, but their pursuing capabilities vigorously because of the US's dramatic present affects a policy of sending character races now displayed the trigger by US behavior. The US to seize unrestricted drone for to its advantage is likely to do so. Even global outreach may not be enough to make the US spread to arm races or direct outcome. Same policy behavior of the US right now is structuring how the world will use drones. Solvency. The status quo administration policy delays between geographic zones, but they are legal justification for wherever it remains in place to work in. 13. The administration policy to counter efforts against individual poses Canadian and part to the US by presenting the drone program as a part of a global armed conflict. Obama continues bending his stance and precedents and guaranteeing the actual military officials said the end of the armed conflict is a long way after continued for 20 years. Obama said our regulation of Obama outside areas active outside lethal force will abuse when it captures not usable. No other reasonable alternatives. These standards will remain unclear and influence remaining representing meaningful change when the administration had its focus on practice. We will well to that this now official policy standards are significantly more restrictive than like the new policy endorses self-defense standards with active basis return to strike the level attacking related mission under new guidelines and hard new standard representing the policy rather than legal obligation. The assertion the US by lawfully killing a member of opposing force what they may become remains in place to serve as precedent for other states. Limiting the use of force as a first resort is critical to sustainable consensus building on targeted killing standards. Scale 13. The zone approach field like Evan offers is setting a standard to limit the legitimate target killing. The approach confines the use of battlefield targeted killing. Victorious situation is limits the use of force as part of resort. The zone approach ensures the state can ensure the respond by adopting the framework of the US law. The US can have the same build of international consensus to the rules that ought to apply to conflicts. Legal clarity is key to both advantages. Pritchard 318. The U.S. has not articulated limiting principles applicable to lethal force outside tiers outside of war zone. Issue present direct where the policy should result in fewer drone strikes. Neither has this policy directed outside the limits of law. Limits that the law imposed on the use of military force, including strikes outside active hostility. Application by itself that generates a country. The international community legal matter concerns about legality of such operation. If you want to use ability to garner support for countries with the cooperation essential to be effective, you should clearly state outside of armed conflict. You should you will only resist use of force against all cases of last resort. The armed conflict is only with the factual evidence of the threshold under I law. The disposition that kids with the fundamental purpose of international treaties. U.S. allies to disagree with the position. The U.S. should acknowledge that it's not used to targeted lethal force. Congressional authorization Georgetown must comply with these regulations. Congressional restrictions key to credibility and signal Anderson. 9. The U.S. would be best served if Obama did give the U.S. in front of the issue by making plain American position rather than merely reacting over legislation. Removes the ambiguity for the single support role for the Congress to play. Is instant American understanding of a lot of the issues again the legitimate putting congressional straight behind the executive branch is essential for the Congress to play. Obama to seek a speak with the single voice to the Russell will continue to resolve force. It's targeted killing the law of armed conflict is not compelling and certainly not practical war. Is defamation of hostilities only congressional action solves Anderson. 10. The U.S. needs to publicly declare that the legal rationale behind the drones and defending the national community. The legal rationale needs to take account of the use of outside the zone of our conflict concepts available and inserting legalities to signal the courts as well as the international community that the two political branches are united. Stopped at united in the second Anderson period.
Okay. Judges vote F. Congress passes a bill that says...
Well, we don't necessarily think Congress is a mandate of the plan. We've read evidence that says congressional restrictions would be good. I guess in the AF just says that the either as a statutory or judicial restriction would prevent the executive from using force as a first resort.
Okay, so who's the actor of the plan?
The United States federal government.
Which branch? Like, I want to know, like, does Congress pass a bill? Do the courts...
We don't think questions of implementation are relevant as per the 1AC cross-ex. We don't think that any counterplans that you want to get out of it are competitive. We will defend the plan text, which says that the United States federal government should restrict the president's ability.
Better question. All your evidence in the 1AC speaks to statutory clarification by the Congress.
Yeah, sure.
How does a judicial restriction solve those things?
Well, I guess, for example, a judicial official could mandate Congress restrict the president. That's an example of something that could happen.
Sure, we'll move on. All right, let's talk about the safe havens card. Why is cooperation key to striking safe havens?
We've made a couple of arguments. The first is that the overall program effectiveness is determined by cooperation with allies, meaning if we don't have the intelligence or overflight rights, it would be impossible for us to strike those safe havens.
So it's overflight rights?
Well, it's overflight rights and intelligence. If we don't
which
have
card do you think isolates the intelligence intelligence portion?
Dworkin as well as the Pritchard card.
The Dworkin and Pritchard evidence. I guess, which I guess a line in this card would be tight.
Which card?
Either or, you said two. I don't have an intelligence warning either of these cards.
Yeah. Application. This one's just about cooperation.
I mean, Zanko says that,
okay,
and I'll read a line from Cullis.
Let's talk about
the ability to garner support
advantage.
for countries whose cooperation is essential to effective counterterror.
Yes, flight rights. Let's talk about the North advantage.
Sure.
What piece of evidence in the 1AC is reverse causal to China following a norm that reduces use?
As well as the...
I guess a line in any card in the 1AC that says if the United States changes their norm to reduce the ability to use drone strikes...
Drones have lowered the threshold for force spurred by the U.S. example. Fortunately, the U.S. still has the ability to shape how the use of drones will spread and whether scenarios will come to pass.
Is that card indicative of a decrease in the use of force?
It's about the norms the United States establishes with Russia.
Sure. What's the scenario for Russian miscalc?
Our Barrett evidence says that terrorists could use a crude nuclear weapon device, which would appear as if a United States first strike had occurred, which would cause Russia to use a retaliatory strike. I guess in theory it could be dropping a bomb in the United States has the similar effect. I guess in this case the actors are reversed, but our Barrett evidence just says that generally speaking it causes the perception of a first strike, which is sufficient, and it bypasses accidental war defense.
All right, that's fine.
Cool. So really, I believe that.
Jacob, you want this guy?
Oh, hell yeah. Y'all should have it. I have a feeling it is not very good. If you want to, you could have
Right
the test.
side down. 945.
Oh, boy. Okay. 5 off. Solvency. Advantage 1, advantage 2.
Let's see, 1, 2, crosscuts.
Anybody ready?
Good.
Cool. First, on topicality and interpretation, the affirmative specify their agent. The United States is multiple agencies be voting issue fairness education. One, specify is key test and desirability to know the way to fully test the possible ways that more power checks are implemented. Takes out the most specific claims, counterclaims, salty arguments to key topic education agency-based questions directly relevant to topics. We can't understand policy craft increase damage done to see clarification, excuse one, see strategy, program prep for, inevitably causes link spike, and next office of warfighting, congressional intervention, kills flexibility of threats, guaranteed crisis escalation, new Waxman 825, lots stronger, legislative checks and more power harmful to deterrent strategies. Restrictions would mean that no president could make a credible threat, even head off explosive competition. The president needs the power to make a credible threat to use force in order to prevent confrontation, precise escalating distinction. Johnson 2006 will become increasingly dangerous. Long range assessment, protect tension will rise as resources become constrained. Speed of flight engagement with the norm and 25 American may lose not the tech advances and conflicts. The future time speed and next office critique accepting the inevitable justice of war blinds us to pacifist alternatives, make solutions to violence possible. Caddy 2010 non-question acceptance of war, make it difficult to propose pacifist alternatives. Wars and disguised by reinforcing the inevitability of war. Our consideration will be focused on whether particular wars justify these do not get up from the issues of morality of war. As such, a war's conceptual framework blind us to the question of how we frame war impacts our war consciousness. This is all key to social justice, prevent extinction from professional conflict. War in 2009. Americans are raised on the utility of a war to conquer every problem. The terms for promoted support the conditioning of societies driven with violence. This cycle of violence exists to control military consciousness. It may not be working for all life on the planet. A war is supported by a consciousness that allows it to prosper. The war mentalities contribute to social economic collapse, but unconsciousness determines what we experience, how we live. As long as we choose to live in war, we will continue to get war in our lives, and the alternative is to position ourselves outside the rhetoric of war. This is key to biotic survival. Democratic in 2009. Today's world in depth in need of alternatives to violent conflict, nonviolent action, planned and executed as a powerful and effective force of social change, memory of a war, and realization of new existential situations. Weak global consciousness project emerges the only viable alternative to escalate in global problems are symptoms of a civilization. Disease treatment depends on and ethics and nonviolence to help make sense of the urgency of our choices. And next off is politics. No standalone Iran bill will pass even if one can. Obama will veto it. Bernard into 323. For the U.S. Senators on Saturday sent a letter to Obama urging him to stand firm. The House was signed by 395 of the 435 members of the chamber. They embraced Obama's two-track approach to winning sanctions against Iran and with negotiations as far as the bill in the Senate to impose more sanctions to Iran has been gaining momentum. Obama, however, has pledged to veto the bill should it pass. And public strategy will make everything right to everything. Nothing gets through the Senate otherwise. That includes the plan, Brogan, and 2-5. Republicans and the caucus plan to use every parliamentary restrict to push Reid to allow a floor vote on the Iran sanctions. Republicans plan using an array of floor texts meaning put as a means of putting pressure on the Reid and Democrats and the GOP aides until they get a vote. GOP senators are planning to use in our procedural tools to keep the issue front and center. Since the legislation starting on the counter, they can also try attaching the bill's amendment to future bills and section bill guarantees its backing for structure. Iran encourages Israel to act here until 24. New Iran bill empowers Israel to decide whether the United States will go to war against Iran. The legislation's commitment to support Israel striking ensures the United States and Iran will come to blows, giving Yahoo carte blanche to hit nuclear facilities would trigger commitment to U.S. forces. Israel attack would lead to a wider regional war escalation. Counteraction could produce an all-out regional war and global war. Iran could 2009 in case of Israeli attack. Iran will certainly respond. Iran will resort to proxies like Hamas or Hezbollah to carry out attacks, setting in flames the Middle East. Conditions of a major war, given conflict rapidly spiral out of control, might clash could quickly and dangerously escalating by engulfing the whole region and beyond. Great powers could become involved. America, Russia, and China. Next off is the counterplay. The United States House of Representatives should pass joint resolution saying the executive war powers authority for targeted killing as a first outside zones of active hostility should be restricted. The United States Senate should also pass a resolution and has the same effect as for a bill in the President's War Powers Constitution Project to specify Constitution for use of force abroad. It requires Congress to enact by approval a declaration or statute to achieve a declaration of cause of an authorization must be clear and explicit joint resolution or statute especially authorizing use of force specifically meet this and urging congressional actions that do not the Article 1 requirements such as the simple or concurrent resolutions but not joint resolutions. Something. Obama will sign a statement of the app calls out restrictions crouch in 2013. Obama proceeded to make the law part section by section declaring that they violated his powers as commander-in-chief with the president and could not block through veto threats. He could unilaterally step from a signed statement. Obama suggested that he was decider on what is constitutional for occupants of the White House so completely embody the unchecked presidency exceptions for a shift in the signed statements were misplaced. Obama has used signed statements to increase his power. No definition of hostilities guarantees circumvention for early 2012. Congress strengthened the W-powered regime by defining hostilities to the use of force. Defining hostilities, Congress has ceded the President's ability to aid the trigger statutory definition of hostility to provide the judiciary with a standard for determining compliance, and he will use UN resolutions, NATO troops, and etc. to claim his forces are supporting world not hostilities in the New York Times 2011 escalating confrontation with Congress reflects the radically altered political landscape in Washington. American force had not been in hostilities. NATO took up responsibility for the no-fly zone in the United States. Shifted primarily supporting role, although remotely pilot drones operated by the United States periodically fire missiles to the military commission mission was constrained by the United Nations Security Council resolution except new restrictions and only part of target killing cost shift to signature strikes. Johnson 2013 creating a wrong set of incentives by creating a separate legal regime with additional requirements for an objective. If his name becomes known, what disincentives do we create for an operator to know the identity likely to be present at a terrorist camp? And signature strikes are far worse. The impacts turns their case on a grand scale down to 13 target strikes eliminate specific individuals. Crucial to enemy capabilities evidence suggests target strikes are highly effective while generating little blowback. Signature strikes and contracts cause large casualties and weaken legitimacy. Signature strikes high probability of going wrong, and failures prove extremely counterproductive. Drone policy geared towards the secret strikes are coercive efforts that seek undercut support and joke insurgent terror as networks and advantage one. Allies increasingly agree that TK is appropriate as first resort, even outside hot conflict zones. Corn says 12. The law status is enemy belligerent and justified deadly forces as measure first resort. The United States, the U.S. forces were in no obligated to attempt to capture before the deadly force. The United States did not view authority to use military force against Al Qaeda as being restricted solely to hot battlefields. We are finding increasingly recognition in the international community that more flexible understanding of evidence, increasing number of our international partners have begun to recognize the traditional conception of evidence should be broadened, and the governments that would oppose target killing think that they are inherently legal no matter what. The plans of is insufficient to meet their standards. The answer in 2009. It does not matter whether it takes place in an armed conflict or not, nor how the United States justifies it, because IHR continues to apply no matter what. It's hard to see how TK has a policy to survive in any form. Allies have been extremely hostile towards the practice. America has claimed that these are killings of combatants in an armed conflict. Does not cut just against the views the international community does not accept killings, even against Al Qaeda. It's a practical at least condition for all killings. And U.S. intel is fine on its own. Outstrips everybody else. In Miller 2013, the United States made a considerable investments in intel spending by the CIA surge, CIA and NSA launched aggressive efforts in a way, and words, deeds, and dollars. Intel agencies remain fixed on terrorism use until communities and reconfigured by massive infusion of resources. The result is an espionage empire with resources to reach beyond any adversary. And EU collapse inevitable and has no impact. While 2011 after dominating global policies, Europe's relative weight in the world affairs has declined sharply ever since European integration is threatened by the lack of external enemy, unwielding nature of EU decision making, misguided decision, integrated common currency, nationalism. Europe won't do America's go-to, won't be the Americans go to partner decades ahead because it reflects a powerful structural forces that there's probably little we can do to prevent it. And terrorists won't. I can't mount effective attacks by fair 2010. Some terrorists are stealing skilled, but quite for this end that many of them are who did foot soldiers foolish and untrained, perhaps even untrainably. And the success rate hasn't improved at all in the last 5 years. They've been using suicide bombs. He experienced hundreds of attacks, thus many suicide bombers, and never even make it out of the training camp. Advantage 2. You have to solve and investigate the LOC blank. They'll tell the hard to define parameters of ongoing armed conflict and raise serious concerns about too many areas being substituted within an area of armed conflict. More and more areas are viewed as part of the zone of conflict. More innocent civilians will face the consequences of hostilities, whether unintended death, injury, or property damage as a result. Runs counter to both the LOC and human rights law and norms. Will solve it. So in 2012, it does not follow the United States should not employ drones with the hope in the hope that such a show of restraint would deter others. Record shows that even when the United States does not develop particular weapons, others did. The international environment is hostile to one country adopted by some self-restraining rules. They employ whatever they can obtain that will further their interest. Drones are but one step in battle to protect the role of arms is limited and only compliance with self-defense norm. Actually, scratch that. And no offense. China won't use drones military. Ericsson 2013. Beijing already faced a tremendous criticism. Injecting drones would prove counterproductive. China fears setting precedent. Beijing against loaded drones for surveillance. The position of Beijing takes on sovereignty will further constrain its use of drones. Even with endorsement, China would have to weigh the benefits all return strikes brought against the potential perception that it is infringing on other countries' sovereignty. Few scholars have considered the use of drone strikes in no U.S.-China war by also in Blackwell 3-5 competitions. Inevitable conflicts is not China's acting its own interest. Is not interested in changing the world struggle for at least subdued because China needs the United States to see markets, technology, and suits. If you quarrel and become enemies, all that will be caught if there's no irreconcilable ideological conflict. Mark the conflict.
Can we make you go for the counterplan or the cap?
What?
Is it conditional?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to read the entirety of your impact card to the war powers DA.
Sure.
The world will become increasingly dangerous. Long-range assessments predict tensions will rise as resource becomes constrained. Speeds of engagement will be the norm by 2025. America loses monopoly on tech advances in the conflicts of the future. Time and speed will matter. Entire thing. Where is its safe station?
Speed of light engagements and tensions probably mean that things like broader scale nuclear weapons will be deployed.
Okay, I think we all know that's completely ridiculous.
Okay.
All right, that's fine. Iran,
Sure.
why will Obama veto a sanctions bill?
Our evidence indicates that he has the intent of vetoing a sanctions bill.
Yeah, why? Why does he want to do that?
Our evidence indicates that Obama has pledged to do it.
Okay, but why?
Obama's doing it now to give him time for negotiations with Iran.
Sure. Rogan evidence is from February. Obviously, doesn't assume the new NSA bill that was introduced, the Ukraine aid bill.
It assumes none of those things. You are correct.
Okay, so why wouldn't it just be tacked onto those?
It hasn't been tacked onto those, which is probably proof.
So why would it be tacked on the plan?
Because they were trying to tack it onto those. If it's tried to be tacked on and it hasn't been tacked onto those things, it means the plan is the next available option.
Okay. I think that's kind of silly, but let's move on. Your impact card is from Trebenko. He is an independent researcher of geopolitical and military affairs from the Global Research Institute, which last time I checked is a Holocaust-denying website with an anti-Israeli slant to it. Why should we assume that this is an objective or even a good piece of evidence?
One, I think the warrants inside this evidence are particularally true. That
Right,
says
from
that,
an anti-Semite, but that's
first of all, this
I guess if you have one opinion that's wrong, all your opinions are wrong.
All right, this seems to be going a weird place.
This is a weird place.
Net benefit to the Joint Resolution Counterplan?
Politics? War fighting?
Okay, your link evidence says putting passing a bill means it will be tacked on. Your counterplan text says they should pass a resolution. The Senate should pass a resolution. Why wouldn't they just tack it on there?
Can't put a writer on a resolution. Joint resolution.
Evidence.
That's just government 101.
That's not government 101, nor have you read a piece of evidence that substantiates that. But
If you make a claim that it links, we will answer it.
Great. Okay, that's fine. Let's ASMEC? We said the HMDF was the USFG.
Yeah, we said you have to specify.
Right. What piece of evidence says that's not an HM? I can't believe I'm asking a question about this, but you have not read an interpretation card.
Sure, we think that you have to specify the
you think
agency
that,
within the United States.
Yeah, what evidence? None?
We have evidence, but we have an interpretation.
You could, though. Okay.
You need to specify a branch, do it. Or don't.
All right. Crouch evidence about signing statements on solvency. Why would he circumvent the plan if this is his status quo policy?
He's done this before previously with bills that he agrees with. The NDAA is an example of that.
Right, but that's not TK. Why would he do that?
Well, one, it had to do with War Powers Authority, so that's more proof than you have right now.
Okay.
nationalism bad, okay. Restriction in statute, which is odd because we're not that. Prohibition. Patent reform. What impact to the economy is great. No, their impact is sick. Their impact is the economy. Competitiveness and everything, okay? And then a EU pressure Ukraine style DA. Feel okay about that? So you're with the side, let's do it here. Advanced cosmopolitanism equals Sun England and Paltrow calls for. Great. Who else is Russian? Coach. Cool.
Oh, what? Yeah.
That's 5. That's right.
Good. 7:30.
Over. I don't think so.
I
think you're safe.
To be honest.
But we can tell the voting public.
Hey, live stream, check this out.
Stone's eating a nasty energy bar. Can't manage to get enough water to take it down.
I guess that also presumes that people are watching. How many viewers do we have?
Yeah, that's true.
There are a whole 24 people watching right now.
Oh my god. Important skills.
Can you ask them who they're watching for?
Oh, that is also true, yeah.
This is pretty key to Whitmore's balance.
Sounds like they're watching the 2AC. All right. Solvency, terrorism norms. So advantage 1, advantage 2. A-spec, war powers, the critique, counterplan, politics.
Can you give me a second more where it just crashed?
Yeah, dude. Nice.
Would you have the warfare?
It's okay. Solvency, CT, norms, A-spec, warfighting, critique, counterplan, politics.
Thank you. 1 second.
Sorry. War fighting is after, before or after?
After.
Good. Don't get testy with me. You want me to extend some arguments?
You want to use sense arguments.
Well, be nice.
Anthony, let me know when you're good.
Yeah, I was like, 1 more second. Everything.
Yeah, no worries.
Granted, I did save right before it crashed.
That's a comment. Tony Playboy. I was on top of him.
No, it's not like
Teach him
what.
to take care of his computer.
I'm trying, man.
Alright, I am good.
What's the live stream say about our affirmative?
Yeah, I'm good. Anyway.
Is anybody not ready? You guys good? Yeah, good. Right.
Signing statement substance matter as long as the plan is legally codified, which is sufficient to solve our advantages. And Obama won't signing statement. Harvard Law Review 12. Obama pledge not to use signing statement nullifier under congressional restriction. Obama Station 21. His signing statement not contain the assertion of executive power. Obama neither cited authority nor claims authority to disregard statutory requirements for the federal restrictions to the contrary. He promised to comply. There are other rights and argument is stupid since the plan codifies Obama's current policy, so he has no incentive to circumvent it. And fiat means the plan is enforced. That's dork, and there's no impact since all of our advantages are based off of signal. Actual practices are relevant, and circumvention is based on a misunderstanding of zones of active hostilities. Anderson 11 zones of confident operation without legal one. The legal reference not to other conduct hostility, war, law of war, no longer had matter, or geographical restrictions not to the point where armed confidence is not culpable with respect to the laws of war. The UN resolution argument isn't about targeted killing. There is no way that he can use a UN resolution for this. It's only based on congressional power. The signature strike argument is stupid. There's no link to it since the plan says restrict TK as a first resort, which is not what signature strikes are used at. There's a second resort, which means that we solve the impact, and there is no reason or link for shit. There's also no reason it takes out the case and the plan. Standard 6 TK operations that logically include signature strikes. Also, intent definition target code take place prior to counter combat elements legal force intentionally used with premeditation against individual signature target code killing without counter law. Law enforcement that seeks the advantage to allies. Their allies find evidence is too old from 2 years ago, and it's only about imminence, which is not about first resort. Our Cohen evidence is from this month. It says there was just a vote in the European Parliament which said that they were not fine with the legal codification of U.S. Dworkin evidence. Also better and more qualified there. Insufficient evidence, fine. We're probably not sufficient for everybody, but Dworkin says we're enough to maintain allied intel cooperation, which is necessary and sufficient. The U.S. intelligence is not sufficient. Cohen and Zago evidence says we need allied intel cooperation. They also conceded the public link, which means that the entirety of the program will collapse unless Obama can justify to the public, and the overflight rights internal link. EU declining inevitable is irrelevant as long as they can share intel cooperation, which Walt is not about. Terrorists will be good enough. Their evidence concedes that some terrorists are skilled enough. We need to kill those ones. And Byman goes affirmative. He says that TK is necessary in order to prevent terrorists from becoming strong. They would use nuclear weapon absent U.S. disruption of planning. Experts and government assessment agree that Settlement and the Toby evidence, their evidence assumed effective CT, which is impossible about the plan. We saw an impending bioterror attack extinction. Miracle 13, like a bioterror made numbers of entries from the terrorists will have more to tell the voice to jump out and advance so rapid hard to track all of us. The terrorists could kill electronic man in the future. I'm regarded for the fact that drive human rights to exchange science down around the correlation of thought cost access to legally and with all background biology. Terrorists included the norms advantage. Locke is resilient and compartmentalized. Posner 10 laws of war always existed. When chooses to go to the first and investor of data that achievely knows you so can be understood as equilibrium acting for avoid mineralized the city of laws were only one state race and center of the violations is always studied about European state law war among themselves with powers and insurgency or one out of the rules yet basic norms were respected, market respected, and there's no link since the plan opposes a first resort stare within IHL does not shift to law enforcement, which their authors resume in. We link turn this Brooks 13 each legal search on major such as geography everyone should not include about possible US target the QC outside the battlefield all better to be totally sure do you have understand about legal consequences we lose any clarity battlefield we have early batches will be totally different. The international law absolutely no restraining. We know to say whether the law of war applied good norms are effective. Zanko Robert said we solved the internally solved link specifically for China. They are reverse causal. Farley evidence justifies the epistemology of this. Erickson is empirically disproven from May, R4, Brimley, and Austin have opposed these by 5 months says that China is being aggressive, which subsumed this miscalculation means there is an incentive for escalation to war. As Japan would start this and it would cause war in Asia as per our impact evidence, which says that there would be miscalculation and escalation. A-spec and counter-interpretation. The federal government is the central government. Webster 76 federal government. The central government 0 card read in the 1 and C. Don't let a new interpretation card be read in the 2 and C since sandbags for the 1 error and makes it impossible for to be affirmative. Simply aggressive focus on nitpicky details raise off and debates over desirability of actually restricting war powers and native focuses bad super generic makes topic exclusively about the courts and are non-sector and it's arbitrary. No resolution makes it picking a sub-actor. We will defend Congress for the DAs, not for the counterpoint. We don't think those would be competitive. As for 1 AC cross is not a voter tickets to Congress and 1 AC was cleared off the war powers DA. The impact is laughable as for the cross-sex of the 1 and C and war power stories irrelevant. There's no impact. Sitterman and 14 political sides often Jeff Sanders to credibility arguing the concept of including logical historical matter credibility has no effect on the everyone to great credibility mitigated war powers. The country multiple repetition one action one down migrant to other US back on liquid sensing all migrants traveling about packing down makes down the future crime or credibility ourselves as we assume they might everyone else knows the matter we can have from the biggest of our Christian goes on to benefit of it possible to determine what policy we repetition here political disorder based on the leaders have based on current calculations. The allies have not interpret action related to anti-American credibility. There's no spillover. None of their evidence makes claims that other things would get affected, which means you should only assume this is about TK and otherwise the WPR Boondy should disprove the internal link and the link is non-unique. Fukuyama 310 problem lies with little left to expensive work could be run through both parties. Congress will allocate the second is the resident cost and not effective shifting control over the president. Congress this reduces executive discretion. Pacifism. The ballot should simulate the effects of the 1AC key to fairness, since they eliminate the whole 1AC irrelevant decision making because they requires competing proposals, utility, more from Murray 97, the ethics responsibility commands and knowledge of diverse meeting initiative, intentional result if they want to change the ultimate goal of the future, responsibility lacking the ethics responsibility can accommodate this, then limit the employment of concern who with the separate action, what is the ultimate disaster result is morally, the fact that you're perm to the plan, not allowing issues to support the alternative, they can't do the after they do as a voter since they still want to see otherwise. The case of the DA proves that violence is key in this instance in order to do things like kill terrorists. The quality of life is skyrocketing worldwide by all measures, really heavy. To taking out the population, multiplies the life, taking the world comes to 900, the average human lifetime result as relative dies as a result of war, murder, traffic, accidents, flooding, famine, tuberculosis, malaria, scurvy, polio, history, mortality, the from the irrational population, concern, attempts, fantasy, breakdown, the one of his part of fighting nerves, that are worse off in mortality, lower saying the ones in the liver, the poor grew. There are 7 points faster than the whole population, the raw numbers, living absolute poverty is found. The alternative fails, or in 60 pacifism, all intentional or aggression, failed to take matters, protection, regression, pacifism, promise on, and to successfully optimistic view, such as the message seem to question the lower grades, targets, morally sensitive, the one the targets sensitive, the result is pure speculation, pacifist, who will work with this makes me whatever the passing can be, versus religion only, under religious faith, pacifism be promising the counterpoint, conditionality, reject empty and broke, so your advocacy strategies, you need to have everyone disfund some strategic control, permutation to the counterpoints, and so a way to restrict war powers authority, Lexus 7, the the law results from the passage of public bills or joint resolution requires the approval of both chambers, distinct control of law from the president. Just want have the force of law permutation do both, and delay means no solvency. The politics lane proves the counterplan does not lead to a hard law adoption, at least the politics and the war powers that benefits their solvency are proof they must impact authority. Otherwise, they cannot possibly solve as per all of our Congress, as per all of our Congress codification arguments from the one IC and the interbrand fights links would still apply to resolution, especially that would still apply to the resolution, and at least the politics goes in a Congress not claim really but try to attain political advantage legislation part of the president yielded political disease time presidential capacity takes time to be used to pass legislative rationally for Congress to go with the issue. Then other issues they can't solve. The AF codification is key to solve allied concerns as to work and evidence, and it's also key to Norton's congressional codification is key to have the US with a single voice that alone creates an exception. Nor that's the Anderson's the only way to establish sufficient legal clarity to prevent war everywhere. That is the that is the Brooke Evans hard law is key. Schaffer in 11 establishing policy after internal legal hard law can allow for state to make credibility national agreements and increase the cost of reneging hard law to create legal offense different national jurisdiction. They per mistakes found require financial for circumvent hard law create more legal more legal uncertainty. That makes the counterpart delegitimates the plan's norm. Schaefer and 11 the software the antagonist to legitimate directive and legitimate effect on the software generating and his normativity there everything exposure to cameras double shots exposure to the complexity right approach relies on specifying condition opportunity to overlapping jurisdiction result and accuracy hard and softball politics. No Israeli strike regardless of deal collapse. Kekin 13 the elected Israel chicken runs always been greatly accepted the Israel not target what is also one time in Young War Israel's active practically short forward national foundation know what's true the nuclear weapons already the America's like knows institute made clear to Israel they'll the others Israel puts the same by the last man of the Israel should only increase like wrong with the bundle run who uses try to strike to gain popular territory to also lead to sanctions collapsing Netanyahu offers to democracy strongly started between actually heard like have enough league sports you consider a democracy everything to do a strong institutional check using the military for the Netanyahu gain support the Netanyahu likes support the Israeli security separate target vision spoke and all the IDF leaders should not support military action in the passive light of IDF led to military action being stopped. They have zero evidence that Israel would actually strike air. Evidence just there's the possibility sanctions push would be in response to a deal collapse, not the planned Shabbat 318 2/3 of Senate House members from the sanctioning against Iran continue to go up with 8% of the work that be serious responsible for the Iran failed to receive weapons agreement calls for Iran with lawmakers back with the country question election. Rapidly extend new sanctions. It's not an opportunity cost as a logical policymaker capacity. Iran bill and the plan fiat is immediate, so there's no run of debate over the plan for Obama to participate in or lose in. And if Obama's focusing capital on Iran, it disproves that he would initiate a fight over the plan. How in 7 partisan part of the state of the national was abandoned with the White House powers back up policy usually backs the administration force resigned to the country with the Congress. Obama's NSA proposal triggers like Waldman 325 bomb convert 8 plan to understand bulk collection whatever use surprising election president only place power no matter what they say limit once direction in the White House they want to give aberration power bombs to get what it wants. CIA outweighs the plan for destroy 324 with no clear resolution capital CIA is trying to disintegral business, most seriously human to roars, and to stop the original option, safeguard the SOB, and the CIA is important, and Ukraine overshadows everything, saying 320 bombers flying simple while facing your time to Ukraine. The president taking the same amount of action, complicated president, better not trying to get to commander chief, campaign achieving extreme tyro PC theory is wrong. List of 130. The journal talk blue pennies about company office believe arguing being Congress around bond political side to make this working tax press more passive favors or a little more to emphasize the opposition when only way appears on TV. Congress only can make what has no ability to stream politics inside that gives Republicans an advantage to filibuster.
I just want to clarify a couple of things.
Yeah.
Only reason we rejected the team is kinda, right?
Yeah.
And also
unless the alternative does the whole one.
Yeah,
in which case.
Fine.
Yeah.
Which card did you read on politics after Howell and Purvels?
Waldman, Friedersdorf,
yeah.
Sink.
Waldman, Frieders. The only card I didn't read was the second Waldman, which is the same card as the first Waldman.
And I was just double checking.
Cool. Yeah, that's fair.
Alright, I want to ask about the Walden piece of evidence you did read, it just says that Obama planned to end the NSA. What, that cost capital, right?
Would that cost capital?
What, you said Obama's proposal triggers it. Is it because he has to push through a proposal to end the NSA?
Well, it's not only that, but it's also a restriction on his authority.
Right,
which
and
is the same
that
like
would trigger. Okay.
Everything about the NSA is exactly the same as your link to the plan.
I want to ask about the critique. The piece of Ridley evidence that just said that quality of life is increasing, how does that assume a link, for example, that says that the way that we are mobilized to conflict makes war inevitable? I understand that structural things can be increasing, like structural violence can be decreasing, but where does this assume that things like violence won't break out?
I mean, that card just says that structural violence is decreasing. We
Okay,
think that
that's fine.
violence
That's
will
fine.
break out because of the act.
The card also disproves causality of impacts. It's obviously the war on terror is a form of mobilization. If causality goes the other direction, it disproves your impact.
Okay, so let's talk about the warfighting dissad, the Fukuyama evidence you read. Can you read me a line from this that you think actually triggers the link? I know you say that partisanship triggers the war powers link, but you read me a line that you think proves this warrant.
Cleavage is run through both parties. That Congress is much less willing to delegate to the executive makes the president cautious. The net effect has been to shift control from the president to Congress, which reduces
so there are
executive discretion.
there are fights
No, it
there are fights
literally
between the
reduces
parties, right?
executive
But that's the warrant. There are fights between parties, which makes the
Well,
president
it's that
cautious.
Congress is backlashing against the president and taking away his authority to
I
do
guess
shit.
I'm confused where this evidence you think says that he would be cautious to act when he needs to. For example, that would trigger the war fighting argument.
I mean,
It
I
seems
think,
that
I
he's
think,
cautious
that,
to
I,
act
think,
like
I think
push-
this is good enough, and your card is just so shitastic.
I mean, the
that
impact
also-
is, but this is a link takeout, so we're talking about the quality of link. Not
I mean,
the
your link is
impact.
pretty terrible too.
All right.
But I think that card's definitely good enough. Like, look,
Alright.
you set the threshold for the
I
internal
really
link so
appreciate the way
low
you said
that
that.
any restriction of authority should trigger it. Otherwise, the plan
That's
is a drop in
that's
the
fine.
bucket
Let's go
for
to
overall authority.
let's go to
for your
the let's go to the
stupid
Schaffer evidence that says that hard law is key.
Yeah.
Can you read me a line from here you think that says that hard law is the only mechanism? I understand this evidence says that hard law is pretty good at accessing the internal
Actually,
links.
better question. What's the difference between hard law and soft law?
It's probably a question for you since you're going for the counterplan, but the difference is that you're a resolution that is not codified.
So, like, not like legally binding.
Yeah. The whole
Okay,
point
cool.
of the AF is about legal regimes.
All right,
So
back
soft
to
law
back,
doesn't do shit about
back,
it.
back to the other question though.
Dude, obviously you could do soft law. Schaefer says that hard law is the best way for legal certainty, which is the internal link to the whole AF.
Where does it say that though? This evidence just says that it can cause things like legal certainty, but that's
I
fine.
don't see why.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Who knows? Dude?
Hard law creates more legal certainty is the last thing.
Don't cause from inevitable. What's this at? There's the card and all that.
Oh, okay.
Just gonna drop this thing.
All right, thanks, bro.
Appreciate it.
I know. Not that it really matters because you read the cards on there. No, I'm not worried about that. I was just.
Who's it?
Huh? Well, that's. Yeah, what? Okay. I'm not worried. I was just letting you know.
it. That is important though, because my value is justice. Does anybody sorry for this not talking on the live stream? No, I'm gonna see what these noobs say. Well, this person said Kurt is probably taking selfies. Who are these? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But like those two separate arguments are good.
The perms on the counterplan or perm do both and perm do counterplan?
Yeah. Yeah. Perm do both. Perm do the counterplan.
Stop, Brad. We have 5 votes soon.
I was breaking new ass before these kids were alive. He is a 504.
I sent it out.
Wow. Yes.
Just think about doing that thing where I went to the bathroom.
You mean like everybody else has done? Yeah.
I'm taking a hard stance against it, so I'm going to hold it.
We are anti-bathroom.
Yeah, if you got a pee, you got
No. Draw a line in the sand.
I understand.
We drew a line in the sand and we're going to keep it.
I just want you to. It's not going to stop me before the 1 hour.
Well, when you go, then I'll count.
Okay.
Everybody got it?
Two can go together.
So the order is going to be the flex dissad, the critique, A-spec, the Iran dissad, the counterplan.
You should say that again.
I got you. Flex dissad, the critique, A-spec, the Iran dissad, the counterplan.
These are some hard implants for this thing.
You are so dirty.
We could win on it by 26-5.
Everybody ready? Consider the impact that there's no impact of the flexibility argument. That means you know offense of the argument. Consider also the war positive authority becomes irrelevant. It means they can get offensive the critique. We're kicking the critique. We're not going for it. There isn't any offense will be able to win on this goal. To impact, we will consider they're defending Congress. That means you're going to defend a bill passed by Congress this week up and Portland on the debate. Iran. Just said I want to turn the case here in the choice Mr. Balls impacts is not based on negotiations, but the sanction bill and how the U.S. will have to come to Israel's aid because the sanction bill gives a green light saying that if Israel strikes Iran, the United States will have to back them in that war. It causes the distinction pact and credible the 12th. December, Iran is possible to decide to purchase lack of intelligence. Israel will have to incur environmental safety, straight time and human rights and sending the world economy to free for the time with Bush airstream into an anti-West direction. The unified Islamists and terrorists who are state sponsored charity attack propagating that would flow over Iran. Also speed the sanctions bill minimize the negotiations to encourage Israel airstrikes act impact long term can be resolved by future policymakers class. Trump leading one of the bills on the country from going to negotiations and encourages the attack on Iran language is the clear statement of the original the United States supporting unilateral airstrike. This language did not require U.S. support and clearly taken away from the Israel underground being enough to unleash dogs of war. Also scope uncontrolled escalation jobs in the U.S., Russia, and China turns all the scenarios only scenario which is the station running the attempt. United Israel strike would like to have a direct conflict with the regional war collapse, global economy and major power plants location that Iran facilities not fully know. Israel strikes to cannot destroy all those capabilities or shipments slow the war. Economy be headed still been Russia, China, and Brazil conform and all that. So, but you get China, Jewish, Germany, unilateral strike was part of World War III. The link alone rolls back, solves the castle to 11. War, powers question the tangle to Ukraine controversy, sexual creative procedural constraints, and political negotiations, compromise, and delivery force in effect, and the legislation demanded, presidential is demanded to receive the new power from the counterbalance of corruption, acceptance of restrictions, and turns credibility, serves the immediate the U.S. aggressiveness, collapses legitimacy because it doesn't like we're going to follow through on diplomacy that destroys your ability to access North, ultimately 9-4. What about the Iranian deception of Obama's willing congressional support? He fails the Iranian government to dismiss the negotiation would also conclude Obama has defied the NPD and international costs and domestic policy framework being found to debate. Such catches Obama needed the confidence he can deliver. President would cannot bring about the Council of Congress and now President who within the negotiating issues. Not the one we conclude the President can be defined with impunity. He can now, with the support of those close to him, how does he hope to win others over the distant consequences would be difficult diplomacy and regional safety for us likely rely on U.S., Q, China, and Russia will host other countries to watch it closely. That he's more evidence watch 11-5. The United States Iran would enable the progress in international conflict, improve U.S. Iranian relations with both U.S. and credibility and solidify the leadership. Also, Iran were armed proxies in the conflict, only risk of nuclear terror in London, and 10 the comments from the Middle East is getting momentum. All traces of the trigger, the Habalah sitting on 40,000 missiles. A war in Israel will not be contained. Iran would decide to Sunni China war in the island of Israel, and the second Holocaust could lead to a nuclear exchange. Look, we will go to the debate. I think that just that goes. Wait, actually, above, I'm going to answer the defense card. Look, our evidence actually better and more the issue here. The evidence says there's only a chance of exaggeration, but it not said the impact would not happen at first, but it also does not assume Iran's progress in the nuclear program. It also says that if Israel does strike, it will cause Iranian progress to amplify all of our impacts. It says the only thing that stops Netanyahu is the immediate elite support because they have checks on him, but they've conceded that the United States bill actually turns the elite support to such a calculus. It means that they believe the United States is going to support them, so they no longer check Netanyahu. It means that he definitely will strike. Look, the rest of the dissent goes completely mishandled. The debate, the issue is that the Senate bill will now, a Senate bill will not pass the status quo, and if it does, Obama's going to veto it. That means the only way for it to pass is if it's tacked onto another bill as a rider. This means political capital is irrelevant because Obama is not relevant in this debate because all they need is a surefire bill to pass it on, i.e. the plan because the fiat must pass. So when the debate in Congress goes down, they will attach it as a rider. One of the evidence is really good about this. The Republicans will attach everything they can as their main strategy to keep bringing it up for a vote, no matter what, until they keep passing to keep pressure on Democrats to vote for it. Before I link evidence, the author speaks to strategies among top Republican leaders, and the appearance go negative. Star and highlight this card. You will need it after this debate, and literally guarantee that link to the plan without a doubt. Now it's headed for a rider. They're using Ukraine as cover, which means nothing else can trigger the link. Also, Israel lobbies have teamed up with Republicans, and they're at the forefront of their strategy. Means stumpers also don't apply. They're going to attach it to every bill possible that they think is a surefire bill to pass. The Veterans Bill proves, and so did Ukraine. It's empirically changed all of those bills, so it means the only thing that allows it to pass is going to be the plan because of fiat. Todd 323. One issues in the media coverage. Ukraine is not a development, especially in the Middle East, escape public scrutiny. The chip is kind of focused on the United States Congress passing new sanctions bill. Alright, hoping no one will notice because of Ukraine. It's used frequently by governments to work on sexual issues. I know person the White House is putting out, or sometimes called by defenses. Even after seeing the strategy used repeatedly, it still often works to try to protect it and frequently succeed. So no one will be surprised to see it being used today with Ukraine. Congress is working frankly to pass Ukraine bill cover. Israel allowed to quick to seize the momentum. Try to flip an additional contentious Iran protection bill and pass lawmakers do add them to attack them sponsored by Senator Kirk and Mendez. If Israel can somehow slip this language to pass the public by adding inequality to an unrelated bill, the new sanctions could become law before anyone noticed. The most audience of these recent attempts occurred when supporting new Iran sanctions attached those sanctions to a bill with funding for U.S. veteran benefits. There were still plenty of other bills that would occur in anti-Iran language could be attached to the U.S. Congress proposed a Ukrainian release bill, a bill that few anti-Russian Republicans, Congress would try to block IPAC really requested support for the plan text to every bill possible but supposed from a stronger advocate McCain and others seem to be waiting for it. I would not do anything. I would not do anything we can do. I would do anything we can to get Iran sanctions. So I would almost say every vehicle that is out there should include that. Senator. If I try to attach that Iran sanctions to every bill, it does make Senator Rich spoke. I want to get a Ukraine bill, believe bill done. McCain. If somebody identified Iran sanctions something as a higher priority that they've got their priorities badly skewed, Graham agreed. I don't want to give anybody a reason to not support the Ukraine bill. Look, this is the only evidence I need to read in this debate. The rest of these are the arguments now very good. They say sanctions. They say sanctions only happen post negotiations. They can see link evidence. Our link evidence is pretty good. They're happy pre because the new Ukraine is to cover do both. Doesn't actually apply because doing both is actually trigger the link. I think opportunity cost goes this way because you can defer to evidence about how the congressional leaders are deploying. They say fiat guarantees passage. I think the debate still happens. This is key to political education and key to for debate education. Understanding the way that the politics system of the United States works is also key to negative ground. We can prove an intrinsic portion of the plan. We should be able to get distance off the capital is irrelevant. So I don't know why any of those arguments matter. This also applies to all of your thumpers. All your thumpers are capital-based arguments. They do not try to attach it to the NSA bill, and the NSA bill is done. So the CIA thing is not a bill, so it cannot be attached to. Ukraine was answered by the link evidence above. I've already answered PC counterplan. I'll try to take negative to additional advocacy. Don't run the block is keep stop all of your offense and never keep negative to shape their own strategies in the world. On the affirmative everybody goes to 3-3-2 as you strategic thinking attention. On the arguments be ready critical developing the affirmative approval critical thinking see the result education and best policy option conditionality force debate specific strategy deficits the plan based different add-ons rather than encouraging panic pattern debate education conditionality positive dissemination of the right body issues. This is the key link between birth and death. Also most real world debates complicated comparison of multiple issues. Also Gabriel issues also two and defined advocacy solve all the contradictory arguments, all certain of his words, just most of dispositionality, first debate down the coordinates, the impact, the most predictable, also kills topic education, and negative strategy, also net benefits, definitely check, reject the argument, not the team, go to the counterpoint. The counterpoint also goes mishandled terribly. I think that the permutation to both is not solved. The permutation to both will still link because it will pass a bill. The permutation to the counterpoint is definitely severed because it severs out of the 1A bill. I will explain the counterpoint to you. The counterpoint is a joint resolution. My 1C evidence is pretty specific between the difference between joint resolutions and concurrent resolutions. The arguments they have read in the 2AC are answers to concurrent resolutions. They do not have the force of law or a bill. But the 1C evidence says a joint resolution has the same force of law effect as a bill, which means all your arguments do not apply. The only argument I need to win is it does not lead to politics. But the House HR 2113, the One at a Time Act, means any riders to any resolutions happening in the House first become null and are not forces of law, i.e. the counterplan does not link to the downside DC 13. Prevent surprise fraud. Let's say the bigger people in family rights of people. Each bill of joint resolution shall praise no more than one subject. The bill of joint resolution shall clearly discriminate. In present title, concurrent resolutions do not have the force of law except for the provision. The title of joint resolution stresses more than one related subject. The entire act of resolution is void if the joint resolution addresses a single subject, but the act contains one or more provisions concerning something that's not clearly or descriptively expressed in the title. Then only one provision shall be voided in the act appropriated funds outside the jurisdiction of the relevant subcommittee. The provision shall be void if the act appropriated funds and created general resolution not debate the subject of the matter of the bill. That each and every such provision shall be void. I think this is the framing argument. No new 180 arguments. The counterplan has not changed at all. We've read one argument saying it does not link to politics to answer your link to politics argument. Hold the line here because it would change the 2AC shape the block strategy. Hold that line.
Alright, 1 and C card on the counterplan. I'm going to read the whole thing and you tell me where I think it says that these things have the force of law. The Constitution for the use of force abroad requires Congress to enact approval by declaration or statute. To achieve the declaration clause, an authorization must be clear and explicit. Joint resolutions or statutes expressing the authority of the use of force specifically meet that standard, i.e. they're clear and explicit. Congressional actions that do not satisfy Article 1 requirements, such as simple or concurrent resolutions, but not joint resolutions. Where the hell does that say that has the force of law?
That literally says to achieve the declaration clause, an authorization must be clear and explicit, i.e. the declaration clause. The declaration clause is exactly what allows us to determine force, i.e. the plan.
The plan is not a determination of force, but that's okay.
I think it definitely is.
It's just like, do you really think that says
abroad, it requires Congress to enact approval either by declaration or statute.
Right, so which means it's not a statute. Okay, whatever.
The joint resolution is a statute.
All right, let's talk about the link debate. Quickly, you don't fiat that the plan is a rider. You just said that it's likely that Republicans would use the plan as a rider, correct?
You say they will.
But you don't
Evidence
fiat
about-
that the plan that there's a rider attached.
Fiat means the plan goes through Congress.
Yeah,
You say
okay,
the
but
debate is-
I'm going to take that as a yes. So the more important thing is you read two pieces of evidence, the Rogan evidence, which is from early February, and then you read some other piece of evidence, which is from 323. Yesterday, which is 327, Congress literally passed an aid bill to Ukraine.
Yeah,
Why
actually,
didn't they make
Mike
that a
Carter
rider?
is super good about this issue. It literally says
Yeah.
they tried to attach this
323.
rider to the Ukraine bill, but their biggest supporters, i.e. McCain, said, no, you cannot do it on this bill. Do it on another bill. We need the Ukraine IMF bill now. The evidence is honestly ridiculous about that issue. It is,
Okay,
it's,
but hold
it's
on,
super
wait.
fucking crazy.
Wait,
can
so
read
I
the
just
lines.
want to be
It's
clear,
tight.
your Rogan evidence, which is from February, if that's true, that they would use literally any tactic, then why wouldn't that disprove that they would just use the tactic on this bill?
Republicans have made a strategy idea that Ukraine comes before Iran.
How did
the
McCain
old decision
block it?
capitalist was Iran before
How did
everything else.
McCain block this rider?
Ukraine, as,
How did
McCain,
McCain
as well
block
as
the
several
rider?
other key senators, said that this is more important than the Iran sanctions bill.
I agree.
to the
How did they
Senate
block it?
Because the support they have from the Israel, they have sway with the Israeli.
Just because, like, they're
lobbies.
senators and they can say no to things?
I mean, no, because they have sway with the Israeli lobbies as well as
So
sway
why
with
does
the
the
Republican
Israeli
Party
lobby
in their
control if
strategy.
something's attached as a rider? Why wouldn't the Democrats just say, screw you, we don't want this legislation as a rider?
They will, unless you had fiat. That's tight.
Yeah,
right?
but you just said that you didn't fiat a rider. Okay,
They would
reciprocity.
say no, which would tank the plan.
Moving on, next process. Can you read me a single line from any of your cards that says Israel will strike Iran? Not just that they could, that they will.
It says I read cards saying that the
No, line. Any line. I'm going to keep using prep. I'm going to use like 40 seconds of prep to see if you can find any line in any of your cards that say that Israel will strike Iran.
I mean, we have evidence saying the bill encourages an Israeli attack on Iran.
Why?
The language is a clear signal to Israel that it can counter United States support for unilateral airstrikes.
That doesn't mean they will, though. It just says that they could have support.
No, it literally says it encourages Israel to strike Iran. The language is a clear signal to Israel that it can count on U.S. support for unilateral airstrikes.
That encourages Israel to strike Iran was you, not your card. 28 seconds.
Alright, you'll have it.
There's a card that you're going to read now.
I'm really late for the class, like 40 seconds. Come on, man.
You should have taken the full 4 seconds, too.
You can have whatever back you want. I give it to you.
I don't have to give it to you. Do y'all want to email this card? Yeah, you do want me to email this card.
Yeah,
that was a dumb
that'd be
question.
good.
Okay, so it'll be whatever card he wants me to read. Solvency. The first advantage, second advantage.
Oh, I said one. It says it's labeled 1 AR card, but I think I'm half, so.
Not your neg.
He thinks
Interesting.
he's half. It's a problem. We're working on it.
You want to pull it up from there?
No, I don't want to do that.
Or you want to take the stand down?
Yep.
Ooh. 1 for 2 ain't bad.
I'm assuming this is on the counterplan.
Yeah.
Cool. Alright, so it'll be on the counterplan and then solvency, advantage 1, advantage 2.
What was the order of the case?
Solvency, advantage 1, advantage 2.
You got it.
Who does need this? Not a board. Yeah. That'll be funny.
Alright, anybody now ready?
Let me get this card.
That would be a reason. Anybody ready now? Cool. Joint resolution never solved. The WPR was a resolution. Yale Law School no date. Resolved by the Senate of the House. This joint resolution may be cited as the War Powers Resolution. It is the purpose of this joint resolution to fulfill the intent of the framers of the Constitution will apply the introduction of U.S. forces. Solved. We're winning a risk 0% risk that they're going to solve the case. Extend the crash evidence. Obama is a fan of unchecked presidential authority, particularly true when he thinks there's a constitutional question at issue, which means he will use things like science statements who talk about the portion of the law he specifically disagrees about. Obama can and will sort of then using science statements that they put additional provisions about enforcement of the bill. In this case, not citing him for enforcing portion and so the affirmative, which he does not agree with that. There's some empirical negative or crash evidence indicates that Obama unless he necessarily likes to clarify things like constitutional issues within the law, which means he will leave himself wiggle room. He already indicates he even thinks he agrees with not necessarily do it. They say about policy now, but he circumvents stuff. He agrees with this is way of ensuring if his vision of the plan he does it through signing statements. Obama has loved today HR of 154 the fact that I support the bill as a whole does not mean that I agree with everything in it. My administration will interpret and implement the provision and subscribe below in a manner that provides flexibility. They say fiat durable fiat and the answer to signing statements and their interpretation uniquely abusive for the negative. That's the reason to reject the teammate first. The bill still gets passed. Signing statements are about the way the executive will enforce the term of the plan being interpreted. Kills negative ground. They get to feel the way the enforcement of the plan. They can get any links based on plan actions. He feels such occasions unique opportunity to discuss the way the branches perceived for war power authority. Literature checks the abusive claims have literature showing that is how the plan gets enforced. It should be forced to defend it. And they make this piece of evidence that says this codifying Obama's false analysis. That states Republican. They say codification is just key to signal. They have no evidence that indicates that their evidence is all based on the way that we use drones, which means that Obama is using signing statements, circumventing, and not doing enforcement plan, which means his enforcement arguments don't apply, especially when he tries to make the argument that says that norms are things like a reverse causal, which means it's not about the way that the bill is passed, but the way the bills are enforced. And here, this is just a joke. He's the Anderson evidence, but it's a straw person using conclusion. He's not the reason Anderson has left once sympathized with the impulse. There was the possibility of cross-border spillover. He changed the principle for the critics was factually ascertainable and legally binding geography in these conflicts, and they say the Barron evidence would include the opposite of what they say. Barron indicates that the modern presidents are not willing to accept congressional dominance, and their claims are based solely on outdated. These executive Barron 2008 future administration complete the extent their own discretion will be faced with an important choice. I'm going to read the rest of the guard because I didn't highlight all of it. They can build upon a practice rooted in fundamental acceptance of the legitimacy of congressional core, or they can cast their law with the most recent view espoused by most modern presidents that the principle of exclusive control of the conduct of war provide is the baseline from which to begin thinking about the commander-in-chief's position, proper place, and constitutional structure. They make the argument that says he won't use signing statements and solder evidence indicates as Bergen's promise, which means that anyway, this UN evidence, they say UN evidence not obstructing killing. The evidence indicates that we'll use justifications like UN support missions to do target killings in the future, which means even if current target killing is not used by UN justification, we'll say that we have to support UN missions in the future, which means we have to use targeted killings to supplement them. Which is not about the president's authority. Now they make the argument that says they're able to solve signature strikes. No, they're not targeted killing. Dunn and Wolf 2013. Important distinction needs to be drawn. First, the president's specific predetermined target, so-called targeted killings, targeted strikes rely on collaborating pre-existing intelligence signature strikes, in contrast to decrease the dependence on pre-existing intelligence signature strikes. In contrast, targeted killings do anything but help to disentangle the links between the insurgents, terrorists, makes the plan extra topical for fair education and restrictions that create shit. At least, which means we use second strike options because the plan can't allow for first strike options. That's Johnson evidence. Also, turns the case or done evidence in the case of cost instability and kills the legitimacy of the program. They say program is unsustainable. Now, I'll answer that here is Chesney 2012. Obama came to office, and likely checked on the commissions. The system as a whole is far more stable today than in the past decades, but there have been and strong continuity on legality of police forces, not just in over operations, but the years road from the battlefield. Surpassed Bush to marshal public defense of these actions. Part of these actions now which means go to the terror bench. First bench. Extend the core evidence. This evidence is about zones of battlefields. They say so. It's just about MSR evidence indicates that allies are accepting things like the way we use targeted killing outside of the zones of battlefield, which means it obviously answers that. I think it's a double point. The Anderson evidence indicates that countries that oppose targeted killing want us to ban it, which means either the status quo is sufficient because the country is accepted over the overwhelming force not solved with the plan. Or indicates that countries are not going to will accept anything other than a ban because they perceive things like the Pakistan strikes as a reason why it violates things sovereignty, which are irreparable. They say use intel is not sufficient. There's no warrant extended here. Glenham and Miller evidence indicates that things like dollar and money are building an espionage empire, which is able to solve back because we're able to strategic lead. Our evidence doesn't assume things like cooperation because it says that things like the NSA and CIA are working independently of the countries. See the other warrant of the Wald evidence says that Wald evidence is the United States is not going to cooperate with EU is not going to cooperate with the United States even if this evidence is not about intel cooperation. Our evidence indicates the United States is not going to go run to EU when they're looking for things like helping things like terrorism. They say terrorism is going to get strong out. There's no Bryland or Byman evidence indicates that terrorists are not smart enough to do things like deploy nuclear weapons. If not read it internally, that says that Bryland when those terrorists are able to get in the first place, or Byman evidence indicates they have not changed their strategy last decade, which probably proves there's no Bryland for when the terrorist attack is going to come in the first place. So go to the normal debate. I'll finish the Allison Blackwell evidence here. If you quarrel and become enemies, all that will be cut off. There's no irreconcilable ideological conflict, stabilizing factor that each nation requires cooperation, healthy competition with each other. Age or military confidence, low Chinese leaders know the United States military is overwhelming. Modernized China does not want to clash. This evidence indicates that there are intervening actions which receive it. Miscalculation accidents are inevitable. It's just a question of whether or not they escalate. I don't think they have wars. The reason why they escalate inevitably is that as extend the LOC is isolated, which means they don't risk of the link turn. Like the NCON evidence here, this evidence indicates that things like norms aren't true, and there's no reverse causal evidence that we read. The following evidence is terrible. In R1 and C2, everyone calls sonar as the only evidence indicates that the way that countries deploy drones inevitably is not influenced by things like norms. It's influenced by their best interest. Or evidence, their evidence, if it's true, indicates that China sees this is the best interest now. Also, they can see the Ericsson evidence. They say China's pushing aggressively now. Our evidence indicates that before it goes to the point of too far or too aggressive, China will scale it back because they don't want to be perceived as the United States. I think that's a double blind. Either there's no impact, or they won't model because they don't want to be seen as the United States.
Next we got.
You got 650.
Oh, Rubai came through. Look at that delay.
Solvency, terror, norms. Solvency, terror, norms, counterclaim policies.
Oh, these comments suck.
You see what it means about us?
No.
Oh, are we talking about your writer's links?
No, they were just like, ooh.
Got him.
They were just like, what speech are they in?
Oh, the YouTube comment.
Oh.
I was hoping people were saying terrible things about
How
us.
many viewers we up to?
24 still.
24
We
watching.
got 24
Including
dedicated.
me.
So we lost the person.
Everybody not ready? What, is that a yes, Anthony?
I said, yeah, let's do it.
Okay, it's pretty mumbly over there.
Ooh.
Shots fired.
It's okay.
Boy,
When I get you back, don't say that.
The plan is sufficient to solve all of our advantages based on the perception of codification to stow, but the plan is bomb status quo policy, which means there is no incentive for him to use signing statements. If it is true that he will use signing statements, then he will signing statement the sanctions as a writer, which means there is zero risk of the politics of the politics, like he wouldn't signing statement the F, which because it's status quo policy durable. The durable fee argument is the reason to reject the argument, not the reason to reject the argument, not the team. The evidence, their evidence is about use. Evidence about use. They're in it first. The Anderson card they read literally says nothing. Or we didn't read our bare notes, but that's a nice FYI. Status quo policy disproves he has an incentive to circumvent anyways. They say the UN argument is not about targeted killing. It's also not about first resort. So we solve that argument. Signature strikes. The Alton evidence says that the Alton evidence and their evidence says that the signature strikes are a subset of targeted killing. There's no link to this argument because we only restrict the first resort, which it doesn't cause a full shift. There's no link specific to the plan mechanism. We shouldn't evaluate expertise to reason reject the argument of that team. Of course, they're just going to go in a shitty dissolvency term, which no one cares about anyways. The program is not sustainable. Public backlash is growing, and the status quo reference is a snapshot of this status quo. But the fact that strikes the current plain sight means that their public backlash is not even if we don't win that internal, we win our other internal links. That's our Buyman evidence. Now the terrorist advantage. Cole's evidence is too good and too new. Their evidence is too old on this question. EU already just passed a resolution challenging the United States on this question. It will collapse overflight and intelligence cooperation, both of which are necessary for the program to be effective. Which are necessary to be effective. The plan is the effective middle ground, which solves their criticism arguments. It aligns us with the EU's current policy on this question. That's working. The U.S. intelligence is not sufficient. We get intelligence from other people. Only our evidence is about counterterrorism, which should be the frame or how you read this. The Walt evidence is too old. There's no reason why they continue to comply, especially when the Cole's evidence says that they're already backlash. That's called the Buyman evidence for 4 years after our 4 years before our Buyman evidence says that the program is the key internal link to preventing terrorism from occurring. Nuclear terrorism, their terror defense assumes effective counterterrorism because we kill the effective assets that are necessary for that to occur. Capabilities and statements proves that Al-Qaeda is interested in acquiring a bomb. They have no terminal impact defense. Also, consider the specific Russia scenario try or die to avert extinction. The norms and advantage of Japan would cause the escalation, which means there's no intervening actors. The Farley evidence is reverse causal and says that it's a empirics proof that it's reverse causal. It does matter for China, which is the Krebs evidence, which can see their norms would change to self-interest calculus, which means there's no defensive disadvantage. Now the counter plan, the first conditionality is a reason to reject the team because it promotes sophistry over advocacy in an in-depth discussion of policy merits towards prefer or terminal impact of social education. Argument resolution is the only portable skill we get from debate, which turns their buzzword off. It's the aviate off half offense, making coach and strategy possible. The too easy as to make a different set of arguments for each potential tuner. The magnitude of strategic damage to us is not inevitable, especially since a dispositional advocacy has a baseline ensures some level of strategic control because the F can choose to perm, and which means we can permute the interpretation. So they have no net often do the counter plan. It is a congressional restriction. Both chambers are involved in it. Requires the signature of the president. That's elected. We've read evidence. You have not. That should be the frame. More evidence. Robbins 88 promotes the provision. The WPR contemplating the enactment of the joint resolution. Restricted the president's efforts justified because they steal the entire F. The worst reject the argument. Not team hard law is key. The WPR card they read the top and R proves that it does not solve because the WPR hasn't restricted anyone ever. It's key to the hard law is key to legal clarity. Gets us key to get states to commit to new regimes. The only way to ensure enforcement and verify commitments after trade for evidence. The counterplan delegitimizes the plan's norm because it's an inconsistent basis state. So know whether the counterplan is a credible commitment. The counterplan doesn't solve is not congressional codification. It's Wayne 10. Attach legal consequences now statute reactions and attach with the constitutional principles essential to the congressional group take the form of legislation made through a formal procedure and presentment to the president affirming powers without statute use of power that if there has no beginning or do it. Even if the counterplan signals congressional preference doesn't actually access legal clarity or certainty. Gerson 8. Hard law better satisfy publicity. Central tenet of the rule of law is to be public soft law resembles secret law for the public. Associate hard statute with binding obligation. The Horatio statute creates a confusion ambiguity. Congress can regulate the soft statute. Congressional requirement is void procedural formalities. Allegedly, do not clarify congressional action. They ensure the Congress does not cut the president out of the picture. No evidence or follow on a claim to the plan establishes the threshold for sufficiency, which means if they do not establish it to solve as much of the plan, and its relevant permutation, you both solve some linked to net benefit because we just go through we just use a joint resolution to solve the impact. Now the Iran impact.
Now quickly counterplan hard law congressional codification key to solving DC for norms and Europe. That's Anderson is working.
It's Anderson and Dworkin. I already said that. Impact to politics. No Israeli strike, it contradicts past creative actions. America would block it even if they have the ability. No, it cannot stop Iran's program, and military elites would veto it anyways. That's heck. If Iran were accidental, it would have already struck with just Bruce remote. It doesn't escalate. Yadlin 13. The main Iranian interest of the regime is survival. The Israeli strike, the dangerous Iranian response would drag U.S. into the threat in the regime of Tehran's assessment of the U.S. eliminating the attack in nuclear infrastructure. The chances would increase the attacks on Iran's nuclear state avoid escalation would threaten the regime of the survival of the regime greater. The scope of the strike, the more pressure Tehran would force a response tit for tat. If the U.S. strikes Iran's nuclear infrastructure, the regime will see balance and need to respond with a fear of escalation. The threat the regime has that the main nature of the Ayatollahs is to preserve their power.
stopped at power, no bomb handoff Roth. 9, no nuclear state has ever turned over our most prized asset in Iran will face devastating retaliation. Iran had 2 goals: retail hegemony, spreading Islam, neither which would be achieved if Iran initiates a nuclear exchange. Iranian leadership is not used to enhance its prestige. There's no turns case argument because it's all these things are collapsing in the status quo. The AF is the intervening actor, so it wouldn't be able to solve our impact. There's also not specific to our scenario, so it's irrelevant. Extinction evidence assumes first terrorism acts as Russia, which is sufficient cost impact. Also acts as the economy, which is the Toby evidence. The link does not trump the AF because it's not about the AF specific legislative restriction. Doesn't turn the credibility because it doesn't access the E, which is their key internal link to this argument.
Their evidence. Sorry, finish that one.
That was it.
Okay, just their evidence does not say that Israel would strike. It talks.
Yeah,
about
their evidence does not say Israel would strike. It just says that they could. That is all Anthony spin and not backed up by evidence. Uniqueness debate. The Shabbat evidence says Republicans are not pushing the status quo. It proves that they won't attach it. The Rogan evidence from February is pretty good when they were actually pushing, which is proves the attempt to attach the right to the link debate. Rogan does not assume the NSA or Ukraine. If they're trying to put it on anything, they would put it on those or this link is as dumb as we all agree it is. Anthony is really excited about his 2NC piece of shitty evidence. Quotes it quotes the GOP, says that they shot down the right arm of Ukraine, which means they would shoot it down. Did this time because and the 2NC did not fiat a right, so they get to do the NSA bill has already been introduced, which means it should have been attached to that, or there is no conclusive link to the plan. The Ukraine has already occurred. The evidence does talk about Ukraine, but it says it proves that if it did not attach to Ukraine, which the APAC wanted to, there's no reason it would be attached to the plan. Theory arguments to reason, reject the argument, not to see.
Let's do it live. You get the stuff for the first round?
Yeah.
Okay. Are we ready?
Got it. Just double check this out. I'm done. 50.
Yeah. Okay.
Just double check that.
Yes.
Cool.
Did you read this whole Yalin evidence? Or did you read
He marked it somewhere.
I marked it at, I believe, survival. The exact quote is hard return. Oh, no, that's round 1. That's the issue.
I just wanted to mark
Yeah,
it.
yeah, that's what. No, of course. It's at the Ayatollahs is to preserve power. It's about halfway down the card.
Yeah, I got you. Thank you.
We don't have. There's another documentary here.
Yeah.
I don't have.
Nobody's on that ICJ game now.
You like that?
Is that you?
Yeah.
Some doubts about its topicality.
Right. It's judicial restriction.
And international judiciary.
Doesn't say it's in
Does
it.
the plan does really say it's?
Plus, I don't think you can. You're not fiating a judiciary restriction. You're having the president submit.
Yeah, a judiciary restriction that already exists.
Yeah, just submit it.
You're just agreeing to follow one.
Super topical. Super topical.
Definition of super?
Jeez, so bad.
You written any cards?
Nah.
Sick.
Just enough. Everybody, order is going to be the Iran disad, the counter plan, the norms advantage, then the terror advantage.
They did call it
One more time.
Iran disad, counter plan, norms advantage, terror advantage. Did you make this shorter at some point?
Coy did.
I see what you did there. That's fine.
He just told you what he did.
Everybody ready? Well, I saw it. So.
Okay.
Fair enough.
You give the 2 an hour.
He's pretty. He's not smart.
Alright, everybody good?
Yes.
That one was for my fans back home.
All 23 of them.
This ways to turn the case here. They've seen a couple pieces of evidence. They've seen that we've had this time for this debate here. The impact is immediate because it changes Israel policymakers, the certain calculus when it comes to structure in Iran. They've also seen a magnitude argument. They have seen the causes they draw between the United States, Russia, and China. This is the only scenario that rises to the level of station. The written evidence that we read is really good on this question. It says you need all 3 of these countries to access a nuclear war for you to rise to the level of station. This is a conceded argument here. Also, concedes that Israel strikes would actually collapse the economy and lead to other major power collapses and regional wars that also escalate and go strong. That means the only piece of defense evidence that they read in the 1 yard did not apply because it's dependent on Iran striking back in the first place. We'll win a strike back argument, but after that we'll probably still win unique impact that causes a regional war that spills over. This is a conceded argument. The 2 yard should not be able to pick this back up. The 1 yard stands the one piece of 2 is significant, but he did not answer my answers to any of his warrants. All the warrants assume all the warrants assume elite checks on Netanyahu, but they conceded that the bill gives a green light to Iran, to Israel to strike Iran, which changes the decision calculus and means that they would definitely strike because they have the backing of the United States. They've also conceded this card does not account for the Iranian proliferation and the progress in the nuclear program, changing the decision calculus of the members. These are all conceded arguments. I think we should not let the 2 yard to pick this back up here only. Pick this back up here. They've also conceded the pack evidence. The pack evidence what we guarantee is teaching. They conceded that Iran will definitely retaliate the 2 ways. A, they will strike back. B, they will cut off the Hormuz Straits here, which cuts off oil and guarantees conflicts that multiple countries are interested. They definitely causes things. They conceded a terror return in the first place because Iran will fund terrorists, but not only that, the Hormuz Strait would definitely give terrorists an opportunity to launch better strikes and definitely reduce the United States effectiveness. This will definitely want to dissent. The rest of the dissent, I don't think they have a good answer to. The first argument is that Republicans are not pushing. I think this is blasphemous. I'll piece of evidence is true. I think this. I'll tell evidence is really good about the way the Republicans have a key strategy to push this right now. Right now, with the cover of the Ukraine crisis in the public's and policymakers' mind in the status quo, they say that the fact that they did not do it on Ukraine means they would not do it at all. I think my card also speaks to this issue. It says that they wanted to do it on Ukraine, but key senators such as McCain and Graham said no, do it on Ukraine, but do it on other issues. Other issues would definitely be the plan. This evidence is really good about this question. It says that McCain spoke to the Republican strategy IE calculus. They said that the Ukraine comes before Iran, so there's not any, so they would not tack it to it because every other bill they've tacked it to got sunk and did not pass. And when it happened, this is a trade-off argument. We don't need to fiat a writer because either the writer passes with the bill or the bill does not pass. This is the reason why Ukraine did not get a writer to it because they needed Ukraine to pass it in the first place. But the plan is a guaranteed passage. This is the idea that they said a guaranteed passage is what they were looking for, i.e. fiat, with a bill that cannot fail. I think my card is just amazing on this. This is better than every card in year 1 and C. That's kind of sad. You've been reading these cards all year. This will guarantee. I think this will guarantee that it definitely happens. The NSC bill does not shut this off here. The NSC bill does not pass. I think the plan because a opportunity cost to it. Even so, even if it wasn't a writer or two, my card speaks to the strategy of the GOP. The Rogan card is pretty good at asserting how they would do these things, i.e. making a condition on voting as well as attaching it to the bill in the first place. The arguments they have made specific to this bill are irrelevant. I don't think they matter because specific to the Rogan evidence is irrelevant. I don't think it matters counterplan. Conditionality is not a vote. They conceded one condition. Advocacy saw the 100% of their offense. They have conceded a couple arguments here. They conceded just bad kills education because it forces bad impact during debates. And destroys the ability to talk about the topic in the first place. They also conceded kills negative flexibility. Negative flexibility outweighs the affirmative flexibility because negative flexibility keeps challenging the affirmative in multiple ways. Also, keep having negative shape their own strategy. The affirmative controls the debate. They have the first and last speech. And also, even in prep time, means that we need to check this back. Because they conceded a 2-3 thinking argument. They say the strategy is possible. We say treaty think is better because we the best offense. And where we have multiple issues to cover. They've also conceded a 2-R. So any of the contradiction arguments made the 2SC or the best arguments, best education to be about versus debate. They have said that death over breath needs a balance in between it, and the only thing that access that is having two conditional advocacies. This becomes a gateway issue. They also consider the net benefits. Check, i.e. a straight turn in net benefit in the first place means you don't have to answer the counter plan if you win the straight turn. Reject the argument, not the team. This also goes conceded. They conceded that you cannot set a precedent and you cannot set a precedent and reject the argument is good enough here. I don't think you get permutations to the counter, but you conceded the bill passes through Congress is not a joint resolution. These are uniquely different. The specification is on your burden. The fact that the 1ER did not do this, the 2AC did not do this, and the 1ER did not do this means you should hold up to a joint resolution. So it's all of your office. You read a card saying joint resolution applies on the permutation debate. You say it doesn't. I think that my cards are better. How it has a force of law to be able to pass it in the first place. I don't think the ready card about it. The War Powers resolution was a joint resolution. I understand circumvention works, i.e. it could get around the law, but circumvention does not mean it's not a law in the first place. They've stated that you can. The counterpart is not leaning to the dissent. The counterpart is not leaning to the dissent because you cannot attach a writer to a joint resolution because of the it's one of the time that norms. No norms. They've said that in certain evidence countries, the poor use weapons and drones and whichever way they best suited the best interest. I should go to the other counter plan. No permutation, do both. The permutation still pass the bill. That bill gets wrote on in the first place. Doesn't matter if you pass the joint resolution as well. Back. China to deploy more drones in the military. That triggers the urgency evidence. And two cities first China will constrain deployment because before it goes to the point of impact as well. They don't want to seem like the United States. That's two implications. That A, the plan is probably not modeled because they don't want to be like the United States. And B, the two means they were not deployed aggressive against the status quo. The absence of black evidence says economic reasons means that conflict will never expand in the first place. Go to the cheerful. I think the binding evidence goes to see that it means you cannot access your look. I don't even need to win that argument. You can see the soft terror. Yeah.
135.
Seeing what Richard Mims going for? Look at this debate. The 2AC was T argument, K.
Yeah.
No, don't wear your shoes.
You're also not wearing shoes, I think.
Yeah, let's click.
Yeah, I agree with that. Great. Are you done?
Yep.
Oh God.
this one.
Yes.
Yes.
I want all the wins. In case you're wondering.
Do I just do check?
Yeah, that's fine.
Stone for dinner.
Yeah.
Where are we getting dinner from?
Just if we want food, we're supposed to text Eddie what we want.
Where are we going? Okay.
Can we run back to Jimmy J's?
Dude, whatever.
Just like to say that. Our things. Drop down like 25 for this speech.
Yeah.
Basically. Just so everybody knows that.
Terror advantage, Norm's advantage, solvency, counter plan, politics.
No, terror norms, counterplan politics.
Terror norms, solvency, counterplan politics.
Okay.
Are you still working on this?
No, sorry, it's done.
There are ideas that we should have international politics, which is what the app says we should do. Not be nationalist.
Yeah.
Don't be crazy.
You're
Crazy.
Thank you.
Alright, Andrew, got ready? Awesome. 5 seconds in the 2 hours, not enough on a terrorism advantage. They've conceded that a terror attack is inevitable and it causes extinction, which means that extinction is inevitable in the status quo and it's tried or die for the affirmative. They've also conceded that a terror attack would cause a nuclear war with Russia as per the Beirut evidence, which made access to their extinction level threshold in order their extinction level threshold as per the 2-1R. They've also conceded as per the evidence of the 1AC that says that a terror attack is coming, that it would collapse the economy, which means the access that internal, like also 9/11 proves since there was a massive dip in the stock market and a nuclear terror attack would be even bigger. There's zero chance that they can solve nuclear terror because they have only read evidences that they can prevent Iran from giving a nuclear weapon to a terrorist, not that they can prevent a terrorist from getting a nuclear weapon by other means like buying it from another country or from the black market or building it or anything else. So there's zero chance they solve the advantage. Only droning terrorists by using only droning terrorists can solve them and prevent a safe haven as for the Johnson and the Byman evidence, which means that we definitely overwhelm this argument. Their only argument is this Byman evidence from 2010, which is not good enough in the context of our evidence from 2014, which cites multiple experts in government studies, which says that a terror attack is coming right now. Byman is also our internal, like, and he says that drones are the reason that terrorists are not strong now, and even if you don't like that, the Toby Evidence Sites government report says a nuclear terror attack is definitely coming, so default their enormous advantage. We're not going for it. There's no risk that China will get drawn into a war, which takes out that part of the Iran advantage, the solvency quickly. It's not a great argument, but they conceded that Obama would signing statement the Iran sanctions, which means that they would not have the force of law. There's an incentive there because Obama doesn't like the sanctions as for him trying to hold them off, but he does like the plan because it just codifies the status quo policy, which means that he would take the teeth out of the sanctions for zero impact, which means that there's no way that Israel will be able to strike the counterplan. The counterplan does not solve the AF. If they avoid the link, then that means there's no legal codification, which is the entire point of the damn AF. They have zero evidence that says that a joint resolution is the force of law. The Yale evidence just says the WPR was a joint resolution, not that it had the force of law, and the 1AR made the argument that the WPR sucks because everybody circumvented, which proves the counterplan would get circumvented and the plan would not, and that they do not solve their Constitution Project evidence. I read the entirety of it in the 2NC and it's pretty terrible. It just says that joint resolutions are clear and explicit, not that they are legally codified. Hard law is necessary in this instance. It's key to legal certainty since it's necessary to get states to commit to new regimes, which is the only way to ensure enforcement and verify commitments. That's the Schaefer evidence. The second piece of Schaefer evidence says that means the counterplan delegitimizes the plan's norm because it is an inconsistent normative basis and states don't know whether the counterplan is credible. That means it swamps the entirety of solvency of the AF because our entire point of our AF for the EU, which is the only internal link that we're going for, is for the Dworkin and the Pritchard evidence says that Obama has to legally codify it, which is the thing that they're pissed out. Obama has the policy of CT now, which doesn't solve, only legal codification does, because they want to bind Obama to it, or that other piece of Swain evidence also backs that up. Permutation due to the counterplan is a type of legislative restriction. If you don't like the solvency arguments, it's congressional restrictions. If it requires action from both chambers and is the signature of the president, that's Alexis evidence, and resolutions are discussed as statutory restrictions to war powers as per the Robbins evidence. The A-spec argument is question begging, since it assumes that we're a bill. We agree we're Congress, that's all. We'll give you evidentiary support, which is the conceded frame for how you evaluate the sub-debate. If we win this argument, there is zero politics CA, and they've conceded that severance was justified because they do the whole act. So at worst, reject the argument, not the team. The politics, start out with the impact framing issue. No conclusive evidence that Israel will strike. This was dropped in the 2-1R. They have evidence that says that the U.S. would encourage it, but zero of it is conclusive. There is no impact to Israeli strikes. Two fantastic pieces of evidence. First, it contradicts past preemptive actions. They know if Israel can't stop, they know that striking won't stop Iran's nuclear program, and military elites would veto it as per their impact evidence, which means there's a rational incentive for Israel not to strike as per our KEC evidence. If Iran were really an existential threat, then they would have already struck, which disproves motive. Even if a strike occurs, there's zero escalation. Iran's primary motivation is regime survival, so they're restraining themselves to avoid American intervention because that's an existential threat to the Ayatollah. That's the Yaglan evidence. Low-level retaliation won't cause Israeli response, so it doesn't escalate. It also means that China and Russia would not be brought in if Iran didn't escalate, because that's the reason that there would be an escalation of the war. Their evidence, their Trabanco evidence, says that if Israel strikes, there would be an impact. Also from global research, which is terribly unqualified. Our evidence says internal Israeli document, the PAC, and the private evidence doesn't say extinction. It supports our modus argument. People know it's impossible to shut down the program. They say it changes incentives. This is all anti-14. IDF always vetoes the strikes. They say it doesn't assume Trabanco doesn't. Keck and Yadlin do. It can't turn terrorism. Iran would never hand the bomb over because they fear retaliation. As for our Frost evidence, and terrorism is inevitable, so it's try or die. Even if they win, that Iran gives a bomb over, will TK the shit out of those terrorists, so they cannot hit the United States. The 1A, to give the 1AR some leeway here, because the 1AR is always super time pressed. As per the blocks, you should allow some, at least some new arguments to access their magnitude argument. As per the arguments above, the rider link. There's zero chance of a rider. Keep in mind, they do not fiat attachment of Iran to the AF. They need to rely on Rogan that the GOP would attach Iran to any bill. Couple of problems. One, if aid bill to Ukraine was passed yesterday, if there was no attachment to Ukraine, then there wouldn't be to the plan. Their evidence says Republicans will try to attach the bill, but if Anthony Spin is right and McCain said no with Ukraine, then it proves that Democrats would be able to say no to attaching Iran to the plan. Their Todd evidence is also just quotes from Inhofe and McCain. He spins that as citing Republican strategy. I spin that as being freaking propaganda of Republicans saying what they would like to do, not what they actually will do, which is the key threshold error app here, because the 1NC claim was super generic, and there's a reason that everyone agrees that riders links are super dumb. Even if that's not true, they've conceded the NSA number as per the Waldman evidence, which says that bill is coming up, so Iran will be attached to that bill, and the impact is inevitable in the long term. The second problem, Rogan, is from February when Congress was actually debating the Iran bill and considering sanctions. They're not anymore, because Obama held them off so that he can negotiate with Iran, which he's currently doing. Shabab says that senators are waiting to enact sanctions depending on if negotiations work, not if the plan works. Sanctions are inevitable if the talks fail. If they succeed, then it solves Prolog. Either way, the DA isn't unique, and only our evidence is from mid-March.
Good debate, bro.
Do you guys want me to compile a document of relevant cards, or are you okay with what was emailed?
I'm alright.
You good with?
What?
Are you good with what was emailed, or do you want me to make a doc of the?
I'm good. If there are any marks, I guess that would be the question.
There's one mark in the 1AR impact defense to Iran card.
Yes. Yeah, I highlighted what you said you marked it actually.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like the Ayatollah's power or something.
Yeah, it's a whole
yeah.
halfway down the card.
To preserve the Ayatollah's power.
So, just take it easy.
Appreciate it. Damn, we're at 30 now?
Yeah, but
People are commenting on The look at your face is too good, though.
You want to get China?
Yeah.
Hard demanding.
Running an operation here.
No, but you got to crack down on Anthony.
Exactly.
He will totally ignore you.
Wow, so everybody thinks I'm untrustworthy. That's real messed up, guys. I was gonna say that. It's real messed up.
We good?
No.
Oh, Jacob, I just texted him now, so he should come back.
I should have looked. My bad.
Come back. Okay.
The decision is a 3-0 for the affirmative.
Chairman Stone. So I started with the DA and determined that escalation of Israel's strike on Iran was relatively unlikely. The 2NR is pretty flippant on this question, and it's just like, obviously they've conceded all of our escalation arguments, and it would cause Russia and China and everyone to get in, which is, you know, kind of okay about your cards, but the 1AR I have is pretty good and says that it's in the interest of the Iranian regime not to escalate. The 2AR has a good explanation of that evidence, and says it wouldn't escalate because Iran doesn't want to get involved in a larger conflagration that threatens the regime, which means I'm not really sure how it can lead to China-Russia war or Strait of Hormuz shutdown if Iran doesn't retaliate to the Israel strike. Your 2NR is like, yeah, man, maybe Iran doesn't retaliate, but I'm going to tell you why it escalates for other reasons. And I was like, I don't know why it escalates for other reasons. Maybe Strait of Hormuz, but I don't know why they would retaliate in the Strait of Hormuz if it would collapse the global economy and the U.S. would get involved. So the 2NR needs an explanation for why Iran would retaliate to Israel strikes to cause a fight to happen. Other issues on the DA, would Israel strike? Your evidence is reasonably good on this. You should sell it a bit more. Encourage Iran to strike is 1 or 2 NC class evidence. Pair says it empowers Israel and ensures the U.S. and Iran comes to blows, which is your most conclusive piece of evidence on that question. The 1AR and 2AR could probably be better on this question. I thought that given the way that you answered the writer just had in the 2AC and didn't really have like a lot going on in terms of the link, I thought the 1AR would sit down on Israel won't strike since Anthony didn't read another card about it in the 2NC. So Anthony, I would read more cards on Israel will strike just because it's the one place where the 1AR can shift the debate to give themselves an advantage. Keck ultimately says that motivation is a silly argument because they would have done it a long time ago if it was an existential threat. There are some institutional checks which say that even if Netanyahu gets political support, he can't bypass the military. I would lean slightly against the risk of a strike, but not a lot. I think that their ev is probably better than you give it credit for, though not not superb. Other mitigating factor on the DA is why would they not just attach it as a rider in the future to something like the NSA bill, which is coming in the status quo? There's not an answer to this argument in the block of the 2NR other than to say that the NSA doesn't have a bill, but that's not true according to evidence read by the 2AC. For your rider DA to make much sense, you have to win that it won't be applied to any other bill and would be applied to the plan. Yes, I think that your evidence is good that it's not applied to the Ukraine bill in the SQO, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't attach it to some other piece of must-pass legislation in the future, which makes your DA ineligible.
What other piece of must-pass legislation?
The ev that they read is NSA.
Yeah, and we say that it would tank everything that isn't must-pass. The only must-pass thing.
You didn't ever say NSA is not must-pass.
You need the veto warrant there.
Okay.
Yeah. You need like ev that's just like they'll veto this, and apply that to everything else. Or like I mean, you all should make smarter arguments, I think, and just like analytically be like, they would attach it to the budget that he can't veto. They would attach it to this that he can't veto, and just make shit up and be like, your DA is inevitable in the future, and it takes it out. That's why writer DAs are dumb. You need an argument about why it would be applied to specifically the plan, and with the reach of their link evidence, which is quite good, that it would be applied to anything. I think that you can lower the link threshold even further than you did. Counterplan, 2 issues. One is some level of mitigated solvency evidence. I think that your 2NC evidence, you're relying on the WPR evidence. It's just like the WPR was a resolution. Okay, that's cool. The 1AR is quite good on the WPR, got ignored by most people. The plan would not be circumvented because it's a statute, which you could look at. I think you should rely more on 1NC evidence and the phrase clear and explicit from that evidence to say that it would at least send a signal. You need more of a sufficiency framing for your counterplan argument, and rely on some pieces of 1AC evidence to say that all we have to do is send a signal. We need to set some random norm and spend more time developing solvency for your counterplan. I think that you just kind of assume because you have a piece of evidence that says that it is kind of the force for law, that that's sufficient, but you need to go further than that. They have like some pretty decent ed that it needs to be sufficiently codified, and I think are just doing a little bit more to reduce the solvency for the counterplan than you are doing to bolster the solvency for the counterplan in your favor. So take some time, focus more on clear and explicit. I think that that's a pretty good phrase for you in terms of just creating a norm, creating allied cooperation. Use these arguments that he's making on the solvency page that all we need is to codify it and everybody will follow, and be like, well, no shit, our shit says it's codified, it's law, it's clear and explicit law, so all of these people would follow it. And use some of those arguments to give you some solvency. Permutation, you should read some evidence that they have to be a statutory restriction. You don't really have an answer to the plan could be implemented that way, other than just to say that it has to be a statute. You should define statutory restriction. I'm not sure that that matters very much to my decision, but I think that you should define it to make this permutation just like totally unwinnable for them, because it would be seconds. So spend more time developing solvency to the counterplan, and if they screw up the link to your DA like they did, veto warrant every thumper and spend a bunch more time in the block developing your impact for why the impact would happen. Yes, strikes. Okay.
I don't have a whole lot to add. I think that the 2NR spent far too much time on conditionality, and there was a large trade-off between that and things you should have said on the solvency part of the argument. I mean, you barely said anything about solvency in the 2NR, and I almost missed it because it was just tied into the permutation. So I think that the AF cards maybe aren't the best, and I would have liked to see some more challenges from the negative about what these pieces of evidence are talking about. For example, the kind of the Swain evidence, the Green evidence. They're, in my mind, I don't know what hard law is, and I don't know what soft law is, and I would have liked to see the negative say, what do those terms mean? Why are you hard law, and why are we soft law? And at some point say the counterplan accesses the hard law arguments, especially because one of the pieces of evidence, I think it's like a Garson evidence, says like soft law is secret and hard law is public, so people know about it, and we've got to get the signal out there. So if the question of signal is that soft law is too secretive and not known about as much, you could say the counterplan obviously solves that because it's not a secret. The public knows about it. But as it is, their cards are pretty good on the like soft law causes confusion, it's
So you believe
ambiguity
you
in formal
soft law,
legislation. I
I
believe
understand what the cards say. I guess like you believe that they have framed the counterplan as soft law, so I need to win the counterplan as hard law, not
Yes.
soft law. For this one.
yes.
Okay.
Schaefer cards are pretty good. The negative evidence, on the other hand, is not so hot. The Constitution Project evidence, in my mind, just says that there are 2 ways to authorize the use of force. One of those happens to be a concurrent resolution, which should not be confused with the joint resolution.
You can't authorize. It says you can't authorize force through concurrent resolution because it doesn't have the force of law.
Say that one more
It
time.
says you can't do a concurrent resolution because it doesn't have the force of law, unlike joint resolutions.
That's what I just said, isn't it?
That's fine.
I think you said it backwards.
Oh, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
I might have just said it backward. Anyhow, I think the evidence is more descriptive of the claiming that they're two kind of separate processes. I think the Yale law evidence about WPR was maybe not the best rabbit hole to venture down without a sturdier defense of the WPR in the block.
I guess, do they win the WPR is not a statute? Or is it a question of circumventing the law?
I think that the WPR is a really bad example for you.
I mean, my question is, do they win the WPR is not a statute? Because that's kind of the only
I thought
way
that Carter said it was a joint resolution.
Sure.
I mean, like, it's not statutory,
Sure.
it's not law. Is that,
Sure.
so that's the argument they won the joint, the WPR is
The
not
one that the
statutory, not law.
WPR is ignored.
Okay.
Because
You
it
didn't
is.
answer that
I-
argument, Anthony.
I said the WPR is ignored. That's a question of circumvention. The president
Yes.
circumventing
And
the
the
law.
2AR
They
said
said
Sure.
it
that shit got
because
circumvented.
it was not statutory. Because it was a joint
That was the
resolution,
2AR.
it was circumvented.
So I've lost the factual issue that the WPR is a statute that
No.
restricts
No.
the president.
Anthony, the WPR is a joint resolution. It happened. The 1AR in response to your joint resolution evidence says that's a bad example for you because the WPR is ignored. You and the 2AR are just like, that's a question of solvency and circumvention, and don't go for any of their solvency arguments. The 2AR says that because you didn't go for any solvency arguments, right, that means that the plan solves and the WPR as a joint resolution gets ignored. So only
I guess
joint
my underlying
resolutions-
question is, why does the WPR get ignored? Is it because the president
It-
circumvents the law, or it's because it's not
History.
a law?
I guess because it's not a law. Because it does not have the
Okay.
force of law.
Thank you. That was the
I get
thing I was confused about.
I mean, the real answer to all of these questions is 2NR concession. There was maybe
I guess I did think
20
I was going to lose
seconds.
the WPR was not a law.
On solvency.
I
I-
understand. I guess I just did
I
not think I was
feel
gonna
like,
lose the
okay, I
WPR
don't
was not a law.
think that's what was just said. But anyway,
It is a law. It does not have the force of one that can cause people to stop.
so the other thing I would add is I think the affirmative team might actually be right about this signing statement argument, because my first thought was the signing statement argument might get the writer link into trouble, and I think that the AF is correct about the signing statement in my mind. It doesn't take out the affirmative, blah, 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 but I think you could have gone one step further in the 1AR and 2AR to said the signing statement will then be used to say this is not a green light for Israeli strikes. The Republicans tricked me while I was distracted with the Ukraine crisis and attached something to a law that I disagree with. I'm explaining that now as the negative piece of evidence that said Obama uses signing statements to do. So, yeah.
I think the few things that I'll add, like one, I think you've got to answer the signing statement thing. Like it's not like it was real quick. Like yes, it's a little cheesy, but there's like an explanation of it in the 1AR. So you need to go there in the 2NR to kind of get that. The second thing I would say is that it seems that in the 2NC mostly there's just a miscalculation about which AF answers are threatening, and I think that you like overly invest in like impact stuff at the top of the disad, that if you win that you solve the counter, like you solve the AF, you don't need all of that impact business. Like the key thing, I think you need to sit on the like strikes debate, do a little bit of stuff. Like you need to push back against this elites will check Netanyahu argument. I don't think like any of your evidence answers that like the Israeli like the people inside the Israeli defense forces don't really want to strike Iran. They think it's scary. Whatever. There needs to be some pushback there. And then
I guess my question is like green lighting changes decision calculus of Netanyahu's like is that a compelling argument? Do I
you need to
different
point out
argument?
in their evidence where the reason why they fear attacking is lack of U.S. support,
Okay.
not the other motivations that their evidence talks about for why the IDF fears striking.
Okay.
Like do a little bit more work there, or like point me to the motivation behind the IDF is lack of U.S. support for the strikes or something like that, and then I think that this issue's maybe resolved. But then do some just like work on the solvency deficit to the counter plan a little bit more, and kind of like draw out some stuff, make some of the distinctions about why it's sufficient. I think some concessions to about their circumvention answers are sufficient. Like he says, doesn't matter if we get circumvented. We've sent a clear signal or whatever through codification. You need to be like, boom, it doesn't matter if the counterplan doesn't have the complete force of law, it's sufficient to send a signal, just like yours is. Like, do some of that, like, use their 2AC against them in some spots to kind of, like, bolster, and then do the, like, is it sufficient to solve the AF, not is it as good as a plan to solve the AF type framing stuff a little bit more. And then, like, they really, you're right that they sort of only have two answers to the disad the way you read it or whatever, like this, like, the, like, impact defense question, and then this, like, begging the question of whether or not, like, there's something that non-uniques the rider link in the status quo or whatever. I do just a little bit more to address some of those issues. And that should be the focus of it. Like, realize where the 2AR is going to be like waxing poetic about the answers they do have, and make sure that you spend a ton of time there, rather than doing a bunch of debating in other places that really doesn't get you anywhere to answer the few points of offense they have.
I thought the 1AR on the, like, all these link turns the case card should have been like, group it, you didn't read a link, I'm moving on now.
That's also true. Yeah. They didn't read a link to the plain cost PC.
Oh, so you obviously that is like PC.
The link turns the case cards
Or like
were in no
Obama.
way, if a rider is attached to a bill,
Yeah.
it crushes credibility.
Okay.
That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess for future, we don't know this stuff. I guess, does it make sense if the link terms of case arguments are the fact that Obama couldn't control Congress from passing a rider bill? Because the evidence is about how Obama can't keep Congress in line. Sure. So, like, Congress will be war adventurous and Obama can't do anything about it, so people don't trust his credibility. So I guess if I spin it as, like, Obama couldn't stop Congress from doing things like the Iran sanction bill, proves that he doesn't have the ability to check them, means that people don't take his international commitments credible.
Sure.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You could probably supplement that with your evidence is like these presidents get tricked from time to time when international crises pop up and they get distracted. So.
Yep. I just think you need a way more counterplan solves in the 2NC, and
I guess I just didn't.
you
think
spent
that
a
was
lot
the
of time on the link in the 2NC to the DA, man, and like they didn't really have a link answer, so like.
It was just that the card was super long.
I know they didn't even really say Ukraine though.
It ended up showing up. So that card.
Yeah.
I mean, we just don't read that card because it's super long in the 1NC, but that card is essentially the disad.
Yeah. Then why didn't you talk about it? You kept talking about Rogan and not that one.
I never talked about Rogan. They talked about Rogan. They were like, Rogan is old and it's bad. And I'm like, Rogan is old and bad. This card is not old and bad.
Yeah. Okay.
I think maybe the 2NC was more of just an efficiency thing.
Yeah.
Like you got really caught up and you didn't answer it, and probably just needed to say you didn't answer it once.
Okay. All right.
It went gray.
Thanks for jumping us.
It went gray. Come on. Jersey shit.
Oh, and the 1R, like, it seems like their circumvention business, like, you're not gonna, it's too much of a whole, like, I would just focus most of the 1R on beating up the two advantages by themselves.
Oh, okay.
Like, they're like, unless you have some, like, Obama absolutely does not want the plan, I think they're like, no motive for him to circumvent.
So you don't even buy like the card we read out prior signing statements, how he supported the bill, but
yeah, I guess they
wrote in his own exceptions to the rule.
Yeah, but like I don't. Why would those exceptions be like devastating to it if he to solvency, right? Like if he supports the tenets of it, like there need to be some like further explanation of that, like why any signing statement is sufficient to crush.
They don't have a good answer to that argument, Jacob. Logically, to me, it is that think of it as like what would happen if they attached the Iran bill, right?
Yeah.
So he might attach a signing statement that says, "I don't support doing this Iran thing."
Okay.
So like, I think with the app to answer that argument would just need to say like the entirety of the app is something he supports, so he wouldn't signing statement the app. Your evidence is about the context of something being attached to a bill that he doesn't like.
Okay. Okay.
So I think they could respond to that. And not to say that they